BBC World Service.
That was the BBC program from our own correspondent. I'm Saroja.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello there, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We are live in downtown Winnipeg. Thanks for joining us here on the show this morning on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. It is 3 minutes to 6 o'clock. Your morning show on CBC here is on until 8:37 AM. Let's say good morning to the team, then we'll dip into the weather forecast and we'll cry about the fact that the Riders won the Grey Cup. I'm just kidding. We're happy for them as our prairie neighbors yesterday, and great crowds here in Winnipeg. Corey Funk directs the show, and he also will be on the air covering the commute. Abby Adeyemi's behind the controls and covers the weather here on InfoRad. And Mr. Darren Marash is our YouTube producer, and give him some love today because he was at the Grey Cup yesterday, and maybe you were too. Fun game in Winnipeg, and too bad we weren't in it, but yes, the Saskatchewan Roughriders take it away. They haven't been in a Grey Cup. It's their first appearance in the big game in 12 years. They beat Montreal yesterday with some fantastic defense. In Winnipeg today, clearing this morning, a high of 3 degrees after a crispy, good football weather for yesterday, I would say. A similar day today. Wind chill, though, with wind factored in, it'll feel like -7 this morning, so you'll need to bundle up a little. Let's go to Heather Wells, who has our headlines right now at 2 minutes to 6. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, and Winnipeg fans, Bomber fans, say they never thought about not celebrating the Grey Cup. One of them who spoke to us, Glenn Commission, says it is still the most important game of the year. And as you mentioned, the Riders beat the Alouettes 25-17. That entire Grey Cup week, all the festivals that we saw around the city was an economic winner for the city of Winnipeg. So even though the Bombers didn't win, we are being told the city did. We are also learning about the Prime Minister in Winnipeg for the Grey Cup, but also to mark the 140th anniversary of the execution of Louis Riel in Regina. Carney becomes the first sitting Prime Minister to take part in an event to honor him. We're going to hear what he had to say coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right. Thank you very much, Heather.
Thank you.
We're also going to hear from MMF President David Chartrand throughout the show this morning, reacting to that moment, as Heather mentioned, the first time a sitting Prime Minister has been there for a recognition like that around Riel. World Report, though, is next. That's coming up for you here at 6. Stay with us.
On cue. Kathy Reichs is not just a forensic anthropologist, she's also a best-selling author. Her dozens of books have sold millions of copies, inspired the hit TV show Bones. She'll be here to talk about her latest novel, why she started writing in the first place, and how in your work you cope with that much tragedy.
I think you have to be a certain psychological makeup.
Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Some tense hours today in Ottawa. The Carney government is approaching the confidence vote on its budget. If it is not passed, the government falls and Canadians go to another election. At this point, it is not clear if the minority government has enough votes. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. And Janice, how has all this turned into a game of chicken?
Marcia, everyone says they don't want an election right now, but no one wants to be the first to turn away. So here we are. If the Liberals were secretly hoping to trigger one, this is a funny budget to want to run on. It's not loaded up with short-term goodies for voters. It's a narrative of long-term economic transformation that asks Canadians to be patient, have faith, trust them. Whip Mark Garrison delivered a 100% turnout for the first two budget votes, and he says Liberal MPs are going to be out in force again tonight to pass this agenda. The ball is in the opposition's court.
I leave it to those that have to reflect on that and come to a conclusion on their own.
The 7 New Democrat MPs are meeting this morning to continue their deliberations. In the first two budget votes, it was 4 Conservative MPs who didn't turn up. Even though Pierre Poilievre's office said Matt Genereux wasn't resigning until spring, he didn't vote. Shannon Stubbs' office said she was on medical leave. But the app that MPs use to vote remotely lets a riding be represented so long as an MP can show their face and push a button. The remaining 2, Leila Goodridge and Michael Chong, aren't considered flight risks, but Chong spoke strongly in the House against the budget and then didn't vote to back that up.
So why would members of Parliament be reluctant to abstain?
Well, it's not a great look to be afraid to face the electorate. Even when there's no election on the line, a budget vote is arguably the most important of the sitting. Maybe hard to make a binary choice amid mixed feelings, but as Green Party leader Elizabeth May points out, that's the job.
I don't think I was elected to fail to show up.
The Bloc took itself out of the mix early by declaring its opposition right away. May, on the other hand, has kept negotiating right down to the wire to see if she could force any policy changes in return for her vote.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Dozens of Indian pilgrims are believed to have been killed in a bus crash in Saudi Arabia. It happened near the holy city of Medina. It was the intended destination of a bus carrying 46 people from Mecca, but it collided with a diesel tanker on the highway. Indian officials say they are coordinating rescue efforts with Saudi authorities. Britain's opposition parties say the government's major overhaul of asylum policy does not go far enough. The changes make asylum status temporary and refugees could be returned to their home country if it becomes safe. As Crystal Gomansing reports, Britain's government says this will restore order at borders.
That it's actually a difficult and delicate business.
Former UK Supreme Court Judge Jonathan Sumption anticipates challenges ahead for the UK. The Labour government is currently bound by rules of the European Convention on Human Rights. Changes to rules around refugees and asylum seekers could be challenged in the Strasbourg court. Sumption says rights enshrined by the court, such as freedom from slavery, human trafficking, freedom of religion and security, are precious. The UK could withdraw from the convention and write its own laws.
You can protect human rights very effectively without being party to the ECHR. Countries like Canada and New Zealand, which derive their basic legal principles from the UK, have done it very successfully.
Exactly how the UK will reform immigration will be made clear by the Home Secretary later today. Shabana Mahmood already said sanctuary will not be a guaranteed path to permanent settlement. When it becomes safe in their home country, people should be sent back. The UK may also stop granting visas to people from African countries, which are seen as uncooperative in taking back illegal immigrants. Matt Vickers is the Shadow Minister of State.
But the reality is this is small steps, some small steps in the right direction, but largely gimmicks.
The Labour government is under pressure to control the number of people entering the country illegally. The Home Office says close to 40,000 have come this year alone. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, London.
Bangladesh's ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been convicted of crimes against humanity, and she's been sentenced to death.
It is hereby ordered that accused Sheikh Hasina be found guilty on 3 counts.
A special tribunal found Hasina and her former home minister were responsible for the killing of hundreds of people during a student-led uprising in the summer of 2024. The United Nations estimates as many as 1,400 people were killed in the violence. Hasina has called the tribunal a kangaroo court. She is in exile in India and was tried in absentia. Bangladesh is now calling on India to extradite the former prime minister. Police in Nigeria say gunmen have abducted 25 girls from a government boarding school. The assailants attacked the school in Kebbi State early this morning. They reportedly killed the school's vice principal and injured a security guard. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Northwest Nigeria is experiencing a recurrence in mass abductions from schools, often by armed gangs seeking ransom payments. Public health officials in Edmonton say the current tuberculosis outbreak is not a threat to the general public, but it is for people who are homeless. And that has health experts calling for more support. Sam Sampson reports.
I still have to go through medical procedures.
Andre Tenio doesn't know when he contracted tuberculosis last summer, but he's been living with the issues ever since. The airborne illness affected his lungs, stomach, colon, and even parts of his spine. That's why he's so concerned the disease has spread in Alberta's capital.
I can just imagine what it's like when you are living in a circumstance where you don't have a house, you don't have food.
Local health officials say there's a tuberculosis outbreak in Edmonton's inner city. It was declared in October when 2 people were diagnosed with the same strain, suggesting local transmission. A November memo to emergency departments asks frontline workers to test patients who are experiencing homelessness and who've had a cough for more than 2 weeks. Ryan Cooper is the medical director of Alberta's TB program. He says this outbreak is complex, but he's not concerned about widespread transmission.
We usually estimate about 120 hours within the same household to see transmission. And so I think riding on the train or being on the street outdoors present any risk for others.
Robin Harrison is an adult infectious diseases specialist who treats patients in Edmonton. She says this outbreak is a reminder to boost supports for people experiencing homelessness.
Because when we start to see outbreaks in vulnerable areas, it's a sign there's too much stress out there. We need support to get people those basic, we call them social determinants of health.
The province says health officials are meeting with inner city agencies to provide support and screening. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
U.S. President Donald Trump appears to be doing an about-face on the Jeffrey Epstein files. Late last night on social media, Trump called on Republicans to vote for the release of all the late sex offenders' files. Up until now, Trump has said the documents are a Democratic hoax. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. Willie, what is the latest?
So President Donald Trump's comments come after a week of mounting pressure from all sides to release the Epstein files. Up until now, we've seen Trump's reaction evolve from silence to anger.
Well, I don't want to talk about it because fake news.
And finally, to this late-night diatribe on social media. In his post, he said, quote, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide. Just hours before his about-face, he told reporters the push to release the documents was a Democrat hoax.
So they're using Jeffrey Epstein as a deflection from the tremendous success that we're having as a party.
Trump went on to point fingers at several well-known Democrats and said some Republicans were being used and were falling into the Epstein trap. Last week, he even asked the Justice Department to look into Epstein's ties with some top Democrats.
Willie, what happens next?
So we expect the House to hold a vote on whether to release the files sometime this week. If it passes, it will then be up to the Senate to vote on it and then Donald Trump to sign off on it. Epstein has become a divisive issue within the Republican Party. Trump has lashed out at several high-profile Republicans for calling for the release of the files, including Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Trump referred to her as Marjorie Trader Greene while speaking to reporters over the weekend. But now that he, too, is calling for the release of the files, perhaps a sign that he's looking to turn the page.
Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime at cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Welcome to Monday morning, everyone. I bet there'll be a lot of bleary-eyed folks who might have been at that Grey Cup yesterday. Thanks for joining us here on Information Radio. I'm Marcy Marcusa, as mentioned. It's a CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. It's going to be pretty decent across Manitoba today. Clear in Winnipeg, sun and cloud in Brandon, and in Thompson, periods of light snow. Abby with your forecast in just a moment as you get back to start a new work week. This hour on the show, we're going to be talking about fans at the Grey Cup. We're going to hear from some of those. Also, something completely different. A new academic report says many younger Canadians are turning to influencers for their political news. We're going to hear more about what's behind that shift and what's at stake if the influencers don't get it right. Also coming up at 10 to 7 this morning, Canada set a goal of eliminating cervical cancer by 2040. Data shows that progress is plateauing. We'll find out why, so stay tuned. It's all ahead on Information Radio. Heather Wells is here with more local headlines. First, hello to you.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's premier says a lot of tires are being kicked right now. The province is spending another $51 million, that's a big difference, $51 million on the Port of Churchill and on the Hudson Bay Railway. Wab Canoe says that cash is going to cover engineering of rail bed upgrades and allow for heavier loads. He also says the province is studying ice-breaking needs for potential year-round shipping out of Churchill. So we'll hear more from the premier on that that. And as other provinces see growth in the number of people having a medically assisted death, Manitoba's rates have dipped. More on that coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
Okay, you have to talk about the bomber tweet because it's the greatest thing, and I didn't see it, Heather, and you did.
Yeah, you know what? So, okay, hang on one second. I'm going to read it to you because it is just so funny. This is from the Bombers
right after
on
the game,
Twitter,
right?
And it says, "Well, at least the sun will explode one day, and none of this will matter."
I'm guessing it was very difficult for the Blue Bombers and fans alike to watch that green and white confetti coming down over the Rough Riders.
Yeah, Devin Heroux called that green magic in Winnipeg.
I don't know if it was magic. It always hurts a bit too. I know they do it for the Grey Cups, but you see Montreal's logo on our turf. And then you see Saskatchewan's, and the Saskatchewan's always hurts just a little, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, that classic rivalry. Anyway.
But surprisingly, we were out talking to fans, and there were Bomber fans who were cheering for the Riders.
Do you want to know what? I was one of them. Yeah, I was one of them for sure. I like a good story. They hadn't been in the game in 12 years. They had a lot of veteran players gutting it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there are prairie neighbors, of course, but it still feels wrong.
A little bit.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Winnipeg seemed to have put on a good show, though. I don't know if you were out there going to any of the parties or festivities, but you can share some Grey Cup stories this morning if you want to on the listener line. 788-3205. Okay. Abby is here. I mentioned the weather yesterday was crisp and really pretty good football weather. What's today looking like, Abby?
It continues, Marcy. The weather would look beautiful. We're going to see clear skies start for the southern part of the province, while we see pocket of light snow hanging across the north. For Winnipeg right now, mostly cloudy, -3 at this time. We expect some clear conditions to move in through the morning. Gentle breeze and highs near 3 degrees, well across the southern part of the province from the Pembina Valley region, tracking it all the way to Gimli. We're looking at temperatures starting between -5 and -10 this morning, with just light clouds. Some areas still sporting foggy conditions, but that should gradually clear through the morning, leaving calm and cool afternoon with highs close to 4 degrees across the south, while up north we're looking at temperatures, ranging from -8 to -12. That light snow continues around Thompson and Churchill. So overall, it's cold, but fairly quiet Monday across the province. Sunshine making its comeback in the southern part of the province. -3 at this time.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Abby Adeyemi covering weather, as he will do all morning. Corey Funk is going to cover your commute, and he's here now. Hey.
Hello. Yes. So far, actually, very quiet commute. And highways are looking good so far, with the exception of right around Gillam on 280 there. Looks like there's some poor conditions, partly covered, and poor visibility, at least according to Manitoba 511. Would love to get an update on that or anything else you're seeing out there on the roads, on the highways, on the bike lanes. You can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Just so... Sorry, everyone, catching me on mic there. So I'm getting ready to start our first hour officially. We're going to go back to the Grey Cup in Winnipeg yesterday, all the festivities leading up to the big game last week. And yes, last night, a big night for the Rough Riders in our territory.
Last play. Alexander needs a touchdown. Heaving it down the field, into the end zone, deflected, and it falls to the field. And gray has just turned green and white. The Saskatchewan Roughriders and Trevor Harris have won the Grey Cup.
So that is what happened. The Sask Rough Riders taking home the Grey Cup. They beat Montreal last night here in Winnipeg, 25-17. It was the first Grey Cup game since 2018 that didn't include the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. But that didn't stop Winnipeggers from coming together to celebrate a, quote, uniquely Canadian, end quote, Grey Cup. CBC's Gavin Axelrod caught up with one of those fans who we're going to hear more from. We heard a bit of him in the news ahead of the big game, actually, yesterday before it started.
Jeremy Remillard.
Tell me about what you guys are doing out here and how long you've been out here for.
You know what? We are celebrating the Canadiana that is the Grey Cup. And as somebody that has never been to a Grey Cup before, having it here in Winnipeg is just like around the city the last few days, etc. It's been amazing to see people from all over the country. And having this as a celebration as Canadian football and a celebration of Canadiana, period, has been outstanding. Just outstanding to see. And I know even though our beloved Blue Bombers aren't in the game today, the expectation when we walk in there is it's just going to be a fantastic party of Canadiana and a celebration of our game, right? So that's my experience so far. And we're doing what we normally do here as Bomber fans and tailgating and having a great time. And yeah, it's going to be great. Looking forward to it.
So you're going to be inside of the game today.
100%, yeah. Yeah.
What's it like, I guess, knowing that you're here to celebrate, but the Bombers aren't in the game this year? First time in quite a while.
It's tough. It's hard to kind of accept as a blue and gold die-hard Bomber fan like everybody else here. But at the same time, there's a little bit of solace in the fact that Saskatchewan is here. You know, they're kind of like our little brother that lives next door that we took to the prom and into the stadium, right? And we're just here to watch over him and make sure everything goes the way we want it to, because we want the Grey Cup to stay in the West.
So you're cheering for the Riders today?
For one day, and one day only, yes. Yeah, about 10 o'clock tonight when the game is over, that will all be over. But at the same time, it's not anything against Montreal. They're still Canadian. It's fantastic, but there's a little bit of a brotherhood on the prairies that we have to kind of stick to, right? And for one day, we'll wear our Bomber gear, and we'll still, cheer for our little brothers next door.
Is that going to be hard for you to cheer for the Riders?
It's going to be incredibly difficult. It's going to hurt emotionally on the inside. But at the same time, like I said, keep it in Western Canada, which is a terrible thing to say because I love this country more than anything in the world. So having it as a celebration of Canadiana is fantastic to have somebody from the East and the West. Just so happens we live in the West. So, and when we go back to the East and the game's either in Hamilton or Montreal or Toronto, then they can cheer for the East. I get that. That totally makes sense. But that's the beauty of the CFL, right? So.
Were you ever worried before the week because the Bombers weren't in that you wouldn't be able to have fun? Like, are you surprised about how much fun you've had this week?
Emotionally, for me, it was super stressful, right? Because when we lost to Montreal and we knew we weren't going to be in the game, that was tough. Like, it was really tough to kind of process that. It's like, we haven't had the Grey Cup here for 10 years. And then to have us get that close and not be able to get here to play in our own stadium, I mean, that would be the ultimate, right? To watch the Bombers play a Grey Cup in Winnipeg and then win the game would be unbelievable, right? So you dream about those things happening. So it was very gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching when we realized it wasn't going to happen. So it took a few days to get over that. Once we got over that whole situation, it became very clear that it's still going to be a great day. The Grey Cup is a celebration of our game, and I think as Bomber fans, we need to represent to the rest of the country. We brag about being the CFL's loudest fans. We brag about having 14 straight sellouts in a stadium that fits 30,000 plus people. And today's our day to kind of represent that whole thing, right? So
I know some Bombers fans were like they couldn't get rid of their tickets fast enough for today's game. Did you ever think about dumping your tickets, or were you always going to go?
No, I mean, it might have crossed my mind for a millisecond, but the more I thought about it, no, it was absolutely, we got to go to the game. We have to represent our city, represent our stadium, represent the loudest fans in the CFL, and show everybody how it's done.
So that was before the game, but some insight into Bomber fans that might have been there yesterday at the Grey Cup here in the city. Jeremy Remillard, local fan, in conversation with CBC's Gavin Axelrod before the Grey Cup game yesterday. So can we just talk about a couple of things here? First of all, I thought the city looked great. The shots of the city, the drone over the stadium, that chill in the air, good football weather. Just loved that. And just as a Winnipegger, felt really good to see a good show put on overall by the city. I mean, for festivities in the 3 days. So we'll see what the economic boom is. We always get the numbers, but we'll have to quantify whether or not that is actual impact, and we'll have to do some analysis of that. The halftime show, this is not a statement. I know it was a big kerfuffle about MGK. I'm not minimizing that. People were concerned because not a Canadian artist playing halftime. But just as a show, watching that for me, I thought it was fantastic. So I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in on that. And I also just want to mention Katie St. Germain, right? Singing the anthem, doing Manitoba proud of Niverville, Manitoba, and that fantastic coat out there. If you haven't seen the video, you want to go back and check that. So lots going on, including the first point of the game, which was a rouge. I can't tell you how many games I watched where I've never seen a rouge. Now, this year we're talking about it because of the CFL rules, and there it was in the first play of the game. Actually, it could have won the Grey Cup, but it didn't turn out that way. It was not a one-point spread. Saskatchewan beating Montreal in Winnipeg in the Grey Cup final last night, 25-17.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's news app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
I want to thank Faith Fundel for filling in for me on Thursday and Friday as I was off helping with some training for hosts. In Winnipeg this Monday morning, we have a high of 3 degrees. It's going to be clearing for us, and that's what we're looking at for the city today. Well, next on the show, does your news sound like this?
Ladies and gentlemen, the pleb is back. In this report, we got to talk about the bombshell news here happening in Canada as a Conservative member of Parliament has done what is the worst thing you could possibly do and crossed the floor over to the Liberals.
That's a clip from at the Pleb Reporter on YouTube. He has hundreds of videos focused mostly on Canadian politics with a whopping 253,000 subscribers. Now, a new report is showing that younger Canadians are getting a lot of their political news from social media influencers. The authors say that on platforms like TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, X, and Blue Sky, influencers now reach more people than traditional news outlets. The researchers at McGill University and U of T found that almost 2/3 of the political content that Canadians see online in fact comes from those influencers. To have a closer look at the media landscape around political news, this morning we have Anya Karadeglia with us. She's a reporter with the Canadian Press Parliamentary Bureau. Good morning.
Good morning.
What does this tell us more, about what this says about how Canadians are getting political news? I've done the top line, but what's your sense of this?
So it is important to note that the research was focused on these 5 platforms that you mentioned. So it didn't look at where else Canadians might be getting their news. It didn't look at traditional platforms or any other websites. But certainly when it comes to these 5 major social media platforms, it tells us that when a Canadian goes on these platforms, they have a bigger chance of seeing, content from political influencers than from news outlets or from politicians themselves.
What's a news influencer, just for the sake of this discussion?
So the researchers looked at what they termed political influencers. And the way that they defined that was people who had more than 10,000 followers and who posted primarily about politics and primarily about Canadian politics. But then they had to figure out how to parse the difference between somebody who might fall more on the journalistic, columnist side versus an influencer. And the way that they did that was they looked at the kinds of content that person posts. So if somebody says, hey, here's the latest article that we've done on what the government is doing, then that would be journalistic and wouldn't classify as an influencer. But if that individual consistently went beyond that, with their opinion on what the government is doing or on that government policy, then that might move them into the influencer column.
Okay, so you said something important there because you used the word opinion, which in my 20 plus years as a journalist, almost 30 now, I mean, that's a key difference. Now, there are columnists in the traditional media as well. Like, we know those distinctions around what that means. But what are the risks of getting political news from someone who is an influencer with an opinion, I guess?
So it's the same risks as getting your information online in general. So the risks are that obviously if you are only going to people with an opinion, and if you're only going to people with one particular kind of opinion, then you're only getting one side of things. So you may be missing a full picture of things. You may be getting an inaccurate picture of what is happening.
And I guess the biggest thing with this is that if you're lacking credit, that's fine. That the opinions are out there all the time. We should be leaning into all kinds of different perspectives. But is the concern around a lack of critical thinking from people who are going to influencers to get their political news?
I mean, the researchers didn't get into that. They really are just trying to map out the problem, and that is really, there's so many unanswered questions here that because this is such a new phenomenon that we're just starting to get a handle of understanding the extent to which it's happening. That there are a lot of unanswered questions.
So let's look back then at traditional outlets, because if young people aren't coming to traditional outlets, what could we and they do better, those outlets, to better connect with younger audiences that might say, well, there's reasons we're not listening to what you have to say?
Well, I mean, I think that is a question that every single news outlet is probably asking themselves. And the answer to that question is just, they're all going to have to determine what is right for them. There's likely a way to look at what influencers are doing and why they're connecting with Canadians, and figure out if there's a way to incorporate elements of that that doesn't mean sacrificing objectivity, that doesn't mean sacrificing journalistic standards and practices.
With so many of these political influencers out there right now on social media, how do you decide which ones to trust and follow, or which ones you're going to include? Is there a way for people to navigate?
You know, it's probably the same advice that is generally given and accepted when it comes to getting information online. It's never good to get all of your information from one source or one type of source. It's important to have varied sources of information. And when you're deciding whether something is a reputable source of information, one thing you can do is look at the sources of where is that person getting their information from.
Anything to add, Anya, that I haven't asked you that you think is valuable this morning?
Just that this is, it's just so fascinating because it is such an emerging, brand new thing. It's something the researchers kind of flagged for the first time when it came to the federal election. It was the first federal election in which they noticed this phenomenon. So just that it's, a lot of questions and a lot to watch out for here. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you. That is Anya Karadeglia. She's a reporter with the Canadian Press Parliamentary Bureau. We reached her this morning in Ottawa. It is coming up to 6:30 in news time. We'll have business news coming up for you in right after we hear from Heather in our local news. Chrisley Ramlakan is back with her report. And today she's talking about how much artificial intelligence is affecting creative industries.
Breaking news happens anywhere, anytime.
Police have warned the protesters repeatedly, get back.
CBC News brings the story to you as it happens.
Hundreds of wildfires are burning.
Be the first to know what's going on and what that means for you and for Canadians.
This situation has changed very quickly.
Helping make sense of the world when it matters most. Stay in the know. CBC News.
We have a series coming up that I want to talk about because it is so interesting, and I betcha it's going to resonate with you if you think about your place of work. If you ever have wondered how to diffuse an argument at work, or you've been a manager who had to deal with that, or you found yourself in a moment of conflict, you are not alone. This morning, we're starting a series looking at conflict at work. There is a report out from StatsCan, and it says an average of almost 1,700 hours a year, according to the latest data, is how much time we spend at work. And pardon me, that's the stat, but the reports from Myers-Briggs in 2022 is what we're building this series around. It found employees spend more than 4 hours a week dealing with conflict. So what kind of conflict? What's going on in the workplace? What do we do with it? How has it changed? All of those things. We'll start our series in the next hour. Right now, your CBC Local News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it is -3. It might be the afterglow of all the Grey Cup parties, but Winnipeg's still going to be warmer than seasonal. Clearing this morning, just a light wind and a high today of 3. Manitoba is devoting more money towards expanding the Port of Churchill. But as CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, the Northern Manitoba mega project still doesn't have a green light from the federal government.
Seamless handoffs, and we'll do a bit of the ground game.
Football metaphors from Prime Minister Mark Carney hours before the Grey Cup in Winnipeg. The PM met with Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew about the expansion of the Port of Churchill. The project could involve rail line upgrades, new port facilities, and year-round operations. Carney reaffirmed his interest.
Nothing more important than Port of Churchill and everything that brings together.
But the port expansion is still not on the federal list of fast-track major projects, even after the province announced another $51 million for the Hudson Bay Railway and the Port of Churchill. Premier Wab Kinew says the money will pay for engineering toward allowing the railway to carry heavier loads, perhaps along a new route.
We're going to be talking about things like the potential route and what is the best way to get products to the coast. So a lot of tires being kicked, a lot of studying going on right now.
Kinew said he hopes to announce more about the port expansion in the spring. Bartlett Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The future of Carney's Liberal minority government will be determined today. MPs are voting on the Liberal budget, and because it's a confidence vote, if it doesn't pass, the government will fall. As it stands now, Liberals do not have the opposition support they need. The Conservatives and Bloc Québécois are both voting no, as are the New Democrats and the Green Party's lone MP, Elizabeth May.
I'm still talking to ministers and representatives from the Prime Minister's office and others to see what could we do to affect my vote, because right now I'm a no.
The Liberals need 2 opposition votes for the budget to be accepted, or if 2 MPs abstain from voting, that would clear the way for the budget to pass. This is believed to be the most likely outcome, with the most parties reluctant to trigger a second general election this year. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. Marking the anniversary of the execution of Louis Riel.
Prime Minister Mark Carney.
The Prime Minister laying a wreath at Riel's grave yesterday. Louis Riel was the leader of the Red River Métis. He was charged with treason for leading the Northwest Rebellion and executed 140 years ago in Regina. Carney is the first sitting Prime Minister to take part in an event to honor Riel.
After his execution divided a young nation, Louis Riel's legacy helps to unite a maturing Canada. A Canada that is determined to reconcile with and learn from our history.
In 2023, legislation marked Louis Riel as Manitoba's first honorary premier. As other provinces see growth in the number of people having a medically assisted death, Manitoba's rates have dipped. Since 2022, the number of Manitobans receiving MAID has seen small declines. University of Toronto bioethicist Eric Matheson says growth rates are starting to slow across Canada, and Manitoba is ahead of the trend.
Manitoba is interesting because it has been fairly flat, or since 2022, really the numbers haven't changed very much, and so that's interesting to think about. It's a little bit ahead of kind of the slowdown that we're seeing in other places.
MAID makes up about 2% of deaths in Manitoba. Last year, 188 Manitobans had a medically assisted death. Well, the Saskatchewan Roughriders have tackled their way into Grey Cup glory.
Into the end zone, deflected, and it falls to the field. And Gray has just turned green and white.
It was the first Cup win for the Saskatchewan Roughriders in 12 years. The Riders toppling the Montreal Alouettes 25-17 at Princess Auto Stadium, and a parade will celebrate the victors in Regina. Now, here in Winnipeg, Bomber fans still came out in force for the sold-out Grey Cup. Even though the hometown team wasn't in the big game, there was no shortage of blue and gold in the stands. Blue Bombers fan Jeremy Remillard.
Around the city the last few days, etc. It's been amazing to see people from all over the country, and having this as a celebration as Canadian football and a celebration of Canadiana period has been outstanding.
Remillard says for one night only, he cheered for the Riders. Last night's game was the first time since 2018 the Blue Bombers weren't in the Grey Cup. The province expects Grey Cup week to have brought in $90 million of economic activity. You can find more Manitoba news updated throughout the day. Just head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you, Heather Wells.
Thank you.
Heather Wells live in our news center this morning. Well, Abby Adiyemi's here with the forecast. But before we dip into the regional forecast, we were talking about MGK at the halftime. What'd you think?
I thought that was a great performance. Him just, swinging his guitar all the way and watching the stage movements was because I'm all not really into the person singing, but I just want to see that stage presence and how they move and their backups and then the people that came to support on stage. I think that was a high point of me seeing that, halftime show.
I agree with you. I thought it was a really good show. Staged well. I mean, the guitar was good. The musicality was good. The sound was good. It was a good, big, vibey show. And I like the music too, personally. But did you catch the moment where right in the middle, all the cheerleaders are at the front from all the teams, getting the crowd riled up. And he's singing. And then he goes off mics and he says to one of the cheerleaders, actually, it's kind of on mic. Yeah. He said something like, I like your vibe.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you trying to make a new friend?
He's in Winnipeg. He's in Manitoba, friendly Manitoba. I'm sure they told him about it, and it's like, I love your vibe.
Yeah, I don't know. That was the cheerleader for I think Edmonton that he was. He was trying to make a date or something. But I was laughing so hard. I'm like, did he just chat that girl up in the middle of the tune?
I guess it was more like a bridge in a song or something.
If you didn't see the halftime show, go back and check it out. It'll be online for sure somewhere today, of course, courtesy TSN. Okay, let's get to what is happening in our regional forecast.
Well, that's beautiful weather we enjoyed all last week. Will continue this week at least. We need to deal with some, misty conditions in some parts of the south this morning and light snow lingering far north. Seen on the tracker here. Winnipeg right now, we're looking at -3. Those cloudy conditions you're waking up to, that should clear through the morning with light breeze. And then we warm to about 3 degrees later this afternoon before slipping down to -6 tonight. And then tomorrow, more sun and clouds. Similar conditions we're seeing in the Pembina Valley region from Morden through all the way to Portage. We're looking at -6 around that area this time. Partly cloudy also there. That will turn clear this morning. It's going to be mild today. Your high would get to about 4 degrees. We head west towards Brandon, tracking it all the way towards Nipawin. We're looking at -5 and clear right now. Light breeze. Moving into a mix of sun and clouds later, warming up to 4 degrees later. In the Parkland region from Dauphin towards Russell, -10 with some cloud. That should clear into a mix of sun and clouds later today, and you warm up to 3 degrees later in the day. For Gimli, we're looking at -10, some cloud also to start the day. That will be shifting to a mix of sun and clouds, high near 2 degrees. The powerful influence surrounding communities, we're looking at 9 degrees, -9, -10, depending on where you are. Light breeze also expecting a mix of sun and clouds, plus a slim chance of light snow coming your way. You only get to see your temperature drop to about, warm to about -3 later before the light snow moves in overnight. For Thompson, -12, light snow still falling at this time. That would hold for the rest of the day, and you see your temperatures warm to about -6. While further north in Churchill, we're looking at -8 with that light snow, and it's we're seeing some drifts in that area. We're getting windy from the northwest. It's going to keep this period of light snow really all over the place for folks in that part of the province. And then your temperatures, you see a high near -4 today. So across board, expect a chilly but mostly dry day with a mix of sun and clouds in the south, and then up north. The further you travel, you're going to see more snow there.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is here with a look at what's going on in the Monday commute.
Yeah, just one thing to keep an eye out for right now. It's at William and Lydia. There is a bunch of emergency vehicles blocking westbound William, so you just want to avoid that area if you can. That's William at Lydia. That's what we know right now. But if you have any details or anything else that you're seeing out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number, 204-788-3093.
Thanks, Corey.
No problem.
Let's get into business news now. Chris Lee Ramlakan joins us live via Zoom this morning, as always. Hello to you.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So let's start with an AI story. Your first one is about how much artificial intelligence is affecting creative industries. We've done some stories with local artists here, certainly. What could be on the table now to protect artists' work?
Yeah, and like you were saying, I mean, AI is everywhere. And, just this month, this artist called Zanaya Monet was the first AI-generated artist that debuted on a Billboard Airplay chart. So have a listen.
How was I supposed to know what love looked like when daddy never showed me what felt right? How was I supposed to set the bar when I ain't never seen no man fight for my heart? Now I'm learning through heartbreak.
Now, that sounds very realistic. It sounds like a real person singing, but it's not. It's AI generated. And this kind of AI generated content is only possible when AI systems ingest massive amounts of existing content. And creative groups take issue when work is used without permission. Now, some say they would like to see a licensing system established. They want the government to require transparency from AI companies so artists can see when their work is actually being used. And the House of Commons Heritage Committee is starting to draft a report today after hearing from groups in music, publishing, TV, and movies. The committee is doing a study on AI and the creative sector. And Marcy, the question of how the law addresses the use of copyrighted works for training AI is currently in front of the courts right now in both Canada and the U.S. So creative industry groups are urging MPs not to add exceptions to the Copyright Act that would benefit AI companies.
Let's move to trade news. U.S. President Donald Trump has dropped some tariffs. Can you break down what he said here?
Yes. So Trump has rolled back tariffs on more than 200 food products, including coffee, beef, bananas, and orange juice. And this is a sharp reversal for Trump, who has long insisted that import duties are not fueling inflation. So this comes after Democrats won a string of recent elections where concerns about affordability and high food prices were key topics. But the White House says the change comes after significant progress the president has made in securing more reciprocal terms for trade relationships. And Trump also told reporters he would move forward with a $2,000 payment to lower and middle income Americans that would be funded by tariff revenues next year sometime. Now, of course, many industry groups are praising the exemptions, but some are still disappointed. So, for example, the Distilled Spirits Council says excluding spirits from the European Union and Britain is yet another blow to the U.S. hospitality industry, just as the critical holiday season kicks into high gear. And when asked if further changes are planned, Trump told reporters he didn't think it would be necessary.
Manitobans are getting used to drinking old fashions without bourbon. Just thinking about spirits and trade wars. There's also a story, by the way, about chocolate and tariffs on our website locally on Manitoba's site if you want to look. Before you go this morning, Disney content's returning to YouTube TV after it was missing for a few weeks. What's behind the change?
Yeah, well, that's because Disney and YouTube TV have now struck a multi-year deal to get the entertainment giant's content back onto the streaming site. So yes, there was a 2-week blackout where YouTube pulled Disney's content from its paid TV platform after negotiations were at an impasse. But now the new deal means Disney's sports, entertainment, and news programming such as ESPN and ABC will return to YouTube's paid TV platform. So Disney says the agreement reflects its commitment to evolving with how audiences choose to watch. Of course, we know so many more people are watching things online and on YouTube. YouTube also apologized for the disruption. And ESPN's new sports streaming platform, which launched earlier this year, will also be available to YouTube TV subscribers. In a world where fans may be struggling to afford the increasingly fragmented landscape for sports online. It seems like there's so many different spots to watch sports online.
All right, Crystalie, thank you. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
With Business News Live this Monday morning on CBC. That's Crystalie Ramlakan. Still ahead in other news, in case you missed this over the weekend and haven't been leading into this morning yet, Manitoba is spending another $51 million on the Port of Churchill and on the Hudson Bay Railway. So Heather has that in her news. Of course, some of that discussion coming up yesterday when the Prime Minister was in Winnipeg, not just for the Grey Cup, but to talk about that. So we're going to hear more still ahead in headlines, and then, of course, online anytime at cbc.ca/Manitoba. 6:45 Monday morning, and music for you next. If you love William Prince, you want to make a date for next year. April 25th, he's going to be playing at the Centennial Concert Hall. That news came out early. But Peguis First Nations William Prince is on tour right now. He's all across the States. We thought we'd play you one of his this morning. This one's The Spark on 89.3 FM.
So am I dreaming, or is this just how we're living now? Refuse to wake 'cause I have never been this close. You always think I'm leaving before I've had the chance to stay. Darling, it'll be okay. If you look me in the eyes, if you look me in the eyes, I say now, don't be afraid of the fire, babe. I'd never let you burn. And all these bridges we cross, all that water underneath. When the ashes of lost love make it hard to breathe, my love, if we burn, would you burn right next to me? And there's so much revealed where you take the time to know me for who I am. I'm just who I am. Don't be afraid of the fire, babe. I'd never let you burn. And all these bridges we cross, all that water underneath. When the ashes of lost love make it hard to breathe, my love, if we burn, would you burn right next to me? And I was in the dark the day that I met you. Now you expect me just to forget you. Act like the fire never burned. It was my solstice, my refuge. Sitting on the sun, I was so nervous to let you share with me this pain, reason I don't take a day off. My intentions, they were pure. I'm just a beacon for chaos. That fire ever burn, just let it burn. I said if that fire ever burn, just let it burn. I sang, don't be afraid of the fire, babe. I never let you burn. And all these bridges we cross, all that water underneath. When the ashes of lost love make it hard to breathe, my love, if we burn, would you burn right next to me? And is it safe to say you are? Oh, babe, you're the flame, the fire, but most of all, you're the spark.
I love how that big booming voice contrasts to the beautiful strings. William Prince and the Spark, he's going to cap off his tour in Winnipeg. As we mentioned, he's across the States right now, but he will be in Winnipeg. You got to wait a while. Next year, April 25th, he'll play at the Centennial Concert Hall.
If it happened today, find out today. That's the power of having the news in your hand. Get late-breaking news from reporters across the country, straight to your mobile device. Customize your experience with news from your region and what matters to you. Whether it's big headlines, detailed articles, live events, or on-demand video, CBC News has got you covered. Connect to the world. Download the free CBC News app or visit cbcnews.ca.
It is 9 minutes to 7 o'clock. I'm Marcy Marcuso with Corey Funk, Abby Adiyemi, and Darren Marash behind the glass this morning. Oh, hang on. I have to say it this way. And Darren Marash behind the glass. You have to whisper to all your friends and colleagues that were at the Grey Cup. It was a loud, long game. They were partying with their friends into the football night. So Darren was one of those fans there yesterday. So we're teasing him this morning. That's an early turnaround, though, after yesterday. Good to see you here, Darren. Yeah. And then, of course, it ended with that sort of kick in the gut with the green and white confetti coming down for the Riders. But congrats to our prairie neighbors. They haven't won in 12 years. It's awesome. All right, next, the Canadian Cancer Society's released its latest report tracking cancer statistics across provinces and territories, age groups, as well according to sex. So they broke this down in a number of ways. The data allows us to look at the bigger picture of cancer in our country, including where we're succeeding in prevention and screening, and where we need to do more work. Let's talk about it with Brandon Purcell, Advocacy Manager of Prevention and Early Detection at the Canadian Cancer Society. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So let's break out this, in pieces. First of all, what does the report say about the most common types of cancer right now being diagnosed in our country?
For sure. So this foundational report, which is made possible through the Canadian Cancer Society's partnership with Statistics Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada, really highlights the tremendous impact that cancer is having across the country. This year, we expect to see 254,000 people diagnosed with cancer. And overall, we're going to see lung, breast, prostate, and colorectal cancers make up just over half of those. In addition to that, we're actually expecting to see more than 87,000 people die from cancer, unfortunately.
In what demographics are we seeing the most change?
So overall, we're seeing a decent amount of consistency with 9 in 10 cancers expected to be diagnosed in folks over the age of 50. But what we have been seeing over the years, and we've been tracking this, is a steady but consistent increase in cancer rates among younger people. So in particular, women under 50. There's a couple of cancers we're seeing there. Number one is breast cancer, which is why it was so important for governments to lower the age of breast cancer screening. As well, we're seeing a worrying change in the rates of cervical cancer, which for so many years have been declining, have now actually plateaued.
So I realize this study was about stats, but do we have an understanding about why we're seeing more younger women with breast cancer and cervical cancer being a concern as well?
So with respect to breast cancer, the truth is we don't know the answer. There's a lot of factors that can be at play, but that's why having access to that early detection method via mammography at a younger age is so important. With respect to cervical cancer, we know that more people than ever are contracting the human papillomavirus, which is an STI that leads to cervical cancer and a number of other cancers in men and women. And we know that rates of HPV vaccination, which is the vaccine that can prevent the human papillomavirus, have been decreasing in parts of the country.
So Canada has this goal of eliminating cervical cancer by 2040. Given what you said, are we off track then?
That's right. 5 years ago this week, Canada made that commitment to eliminate cervical cancer. And unfortunately, because of this change we've been seeing, we're no longer on track to eliminate cervical cancer. And there's a number of things that we can do to change that. The first thing we talk about is really making sure that people get their HPV vaccinations. So Manitoba has been a leader in this by allowing folks to have easy and open and free access to that vaccination consistently, which is fantastic. We're also looking for all provinces and territories to change the screening method for cervical cancer, so switching from Pap testing to HPV testing, which is more accurate and can actually be done less frequently, so 5 years as opposed to every 3 years. And we're also looking for governments to allow women who get cervical cancer screening to do so at home. We're actually now at the point where we have individual test kits that can be mailed to your house. You can do the test at home through a simple vaginal swab and send the test back in the mail to a lab. It's a simple method, and so we're looking for Canadians to help us advocate on this by going to cancer.ca/stopcervicalcancer, where folks can write a letter to their MLA asking them to move on these important pieces.
What else would you like to mention out of the report, Brandon, before I let you go? Obviously, whenever we do an interview about a report, there's a million areas you could look at. But what stood out for you that we haven't talked about yet, either in the area of prevention or care?
That's a great question. I appreciate you saying that. So, for me, what the report really highlights is the importance of both prevention and screening. Part of the reason why we're seeing these increased numbers is partially because of increased population, but because people are taking up screening when it's available. So that's why it's so important for women to have their mammograms and go for cervical cancer screening. It's important for men to get their PSA testing when they qualify, because when a cancer is caught early, it is so much easier to treat, and the likelihood of survival is so much greater. In addition to that, we know that 2 in 5 cancers can actually be prevented, which is why things like the HPV vaccination are so important, because it can prevent not just cervical cancer women, but a number of other cancers in men and women. It's why we need to have a conversation about our alcohol consumption, unfortunately, because alcohol after tobacco is the number one risk factor for cancer, unfortunately.
Thanks for your time this morning and walking us through some of this data that is new. We appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Marcy.
That is Brandon Purcell with us live on CBC's Information Radio on CBC. Advocacy Manager of Prevention and Early Detection at the Canadian Cancer Society. It is 3 minutes to 7 o'clock. Heather Wells is here with our next local look at headlines in advance of the national news. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, fewer Manitobans are choosing to have medically assisted deaths in recent years. Data from Shared Health shows the number of people accessing MAID has seen small declines since 2022. A MAID educator worries Manitoba's recent dip points to problems with rural access to health care. Even though the numbers for the Bombers, were not in yesterday's big game, Winnipeg fans still packed the stands. Glenn Comishon says he never thought about not celebrating the Grey Cup because it is the most important game of the year. In case you missed it, the Riders have won the championship for the first time in 12 years, beating the Alouettes 25-17. We are going to take you to the game in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Your commute should be fine this morning. We haven't spotted anything on traffic management or getting calls here, but if you do need to update something, the person who calls Corey, 788-3093 is the commuter line, 788-3093. Weather-wise, mostly cloudy, -3 in Winnipeg, -5 over in Brandon, clear for you. And in the city of Thompson, light snow falling, -12. In Winnipeg today, kind of a continuation of this nice, crisp November weather we've been having. Clear sky this morning, your high is going to be right around 3 degrees, so we'll get above zero. In the next hour of Information Radio, we are going to be talking about someone that was on the phone for a long time. We're about to hear on World Report his story covered as well. 7 hours. Frustrated. It should have been a simple cancellation for him to cancel his Rogers service. But it turned out to be, as I said, 7 hours of being on hold and being frustrated. He's not alone. We're going to hear why so many Canadians say that getting help from their telecom provider feels impossible. So we'll have that coming up from our Go Public unit with that Manitoba story. In addition, in the next hour of the show, a new report found that employees spend more than 4 hours a week dealing with conflict in the workplace. We're going to hear what CBC's Jim Agapito found out when he asked Winnipeggers on the streets what that resonates for them, how that resonates for them, rather. What stories did they have about conflict in the workplace? That's just part one of a series we're going to be rolling out for you, so stay tuned. It begins in the next hour of the show. And then at 10 to 8, we will hear more about Manitoba's latest plan to recruit doctors from Quebec. CBC Radio-Canada's Catherine Merot will join us with her report. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Stay with us. World Report, the latest in national and international news, is next at 7.
On the Current.
As an ending-driven writer, I'm always working with a timeline. I know more about the end than I do the beginning.
The best-selling author John Irving has a new novel. Queen Esther returns to the world of his 1985 bestseller, The Cider House Rules, with a new story and familiar characters. John Irving on the power of reading, coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Rogers customers across Canada are complaining about long waits for customer service. Some say they've been left on hold for hours. Others have been disconnected, and many blame a lack of competition and customer protections. The CBC's Erica Johnson has more on this Go Public investigation.
Please continue to hold, and we will be with you shortly.
When Anil Sadha of Winnipeg tried cancelling his Rogers internet online, the link was broken. Then a chatbot told him he had to call to cancel. So began hours and hours of trying to reach a human who could help.
How many days am I expected to call someone just to cancel a simple internet service?
On social media, Rogers customers complain of lengthy waits, getting the runaround, disconnected. Former call center agents who handled Rogers customers worry it could get worse. They were part of recent layoffs at a call center contracted by Rogers. Hundreds lost their jobs after the employees had helped train an AI system that listened in, offered prompts. Rogers won't say if their jobs were moved elsewhere or are just gone, claiming only that AI will enhance customer service by making agents more efficient.
And they sort of move in a pack.
Keldon Bester is executive director of the Canadian Anti-Monopoly Project. He says unhappy customers are the result of a lack of competition for Rogers, Bell, and TELUS.
I think it's a symptom of how these industries see their customers, not as someone to win over and to keep in terms of loyalty, but to see how much they can squeeze out of them.
He points to other countries that are introducing better customer protections, like the ability in Germany to cancel a service with 2 clicks. Meantime, Anil Sadha was finally able to cancel his internet. It took him about 7 hours to tell Rogers goodbye. Erica Johnson, CBC News, Vancouver.
The minority Carney government faces a crucial vote on its budget today in the House of Commons. At this point, it is not clear if it will pass. For that to happen, opposition MPs will need to either abstain from voting or side with the Liberals. Budget bills are considered confidence votes. If the bill does not pass, it will trigger a snap election. The Liberals say if it comes to that, they are ready. U.S. President Donald Trump appears to be doing an about-face on the Jeffrey Epstein files. Late last night on social media, Trump called on Republicans to vote for the release of all the late sex offenders' files. Up until now, Trump has said the documents are a Democratic hoax. The CBC's Willie Lowry joins me now from Washington. And Willie, what is the latest?
So President Donald Trump's comments come after a week of mounting pressure from all sides to release the Epstein files. Up until now, we've seen Trump's reaction evolve from silence to anger.
Well, I don't want to talk about it because fake news.
And finally to this late night diatribe on social media. In his post, he said, quote, House Republicans should vote to release the Epstein files because we have nothing to hide. Just hours before his about face, he told reporters the push to release the documents was a Democrat hoax.
So they're using Jeffrey Epstein as a deflection from the tremendous success that we're having as a party.
Trump went on to point fingers at several well-known Democrats and said some Republicans were being used and were falling into the Epstein trap. Last week, he even asked the Justice Department to look into Epstein's ties with some top Democrats.
Willie, what happens next?
So we expect the House to hold a vote on whether to release the files sometime this week. If it passes, it will then be up to the Senate to vote on it and then Donald Trump to sign off on it. Epstein has become a divisive issue within the Republican Party. Trump has lashed out at several high-profile Republicans for calling for the release of the files, including Georgia Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Trump referred to her as Marjorie Trader Greene while speaking to reporters over the weekend. But now that he, too, is calling for the release of the files, perhaps a sign that he's looking to turn the page.
Thank you, Willie.
My pleasure.
The CBC's Willie Lowry in Washington. U.S. President Donald Trump says his country may be open to discussions with Venezuela. Despite allegations, President Nicolas Maduro is the leader of a cartel. Over the weekend, the U.S. built up its military presence in the Caribbean. Trump says the U.S. is now in a position to strike specific targets inside Venezuela.
It allows us to do that, but we haven't said we're going to do that. And we may be having some discussions with Maduro, and we'll see how that turns out. They would like to talk.
The U.S. State Department says it will designate Cartel de los Soles as a terrorist organization. It claims that cartel is being run by Maduro, which means the Venezuelan president will effectively be designated a terrorist as well. Voters in Ecuador have rejected a proposal that would allow U.S. troops in their country. Drug violence in Ecuador has spiked in recent years, and boosting U.S. military bases was pitched to voters as a way to weaken gangs. But it was rejected in a referendum yesterday. Manuel Rueda has more.
The results are a major defeat for Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa, a staunch U.S. ally who has taken an iron-fisted approach to crime. Noboa has argued that closer cooperation with the United States is necessary to weaken drug gangs that are exporting cocaine from Ecuador's ports and attacking civilians as they fight for territory. International cooperation is the only way to defeat transnational criminal groups, Noboa said as voting got underway on Sunday. But 6 out of 10 voters rejected the president's proposal to allow foreign military bases in Ecuador. Martín Pallares, an Ecuadorian political analyst, said that the government erred by presenting this proposal along with an effort to change Ecuador's constitution.
I am not sure people doesn't want a military base. The problem is people noticed that this was a ploy for imposing an authoritarian government.
Ecuador's president had also proposed rewriting the nation's constitution to give the government more tools to fight crime. But voters struck down the move, with critics of Noboa arguing that a new constitution might decrease judicial oversight. Indigenous leaders also said that a new constitution could diminish rights for their communities, as Ecuador's government attempts to increase oil production in the Amazon region. Manuel Rueda for CBC News, Bogotá.
As many as 45 people are feared dead after a bus crash in Saudi Arabia. Officials say Indian pilgrims were traveling towards the holy city of Medina from Mecca. 46 people were on the bus when it collided with a diesel tanker on the highway. Indian officials say they are coordinating rescue efforts with Saudi authorities. Bangladesh's deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been sentenced to death. She was convicted in absentia of crimes against humanity. A tribunal found her responsible for hundreds of killings by security forces during student-led protests in 2024. Our South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji has more.
A line of police officers in full protective gear stand by the courthouse in Dhaka, with student protesters getting louder, poised with a bulldozer near the former family home of ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Bangladesh's capital tense as the verdict against Hasina is read out.
Is the crime against humanity.
The authoritarian leader who ruled Bangladesh with an iron fist for 15 years, accused of personally ordering a violent crackdown on student-led demonstrations last year that the United Nations estimates killed up to 1,400 people, mostly from gunfire by security forces. Hasina has consistently denied the allegations, calling the court proceedings a politically motivated farce.
So you know all the heinous crimes that she has committed.
We want the justice. We want Hasina's death sentence and that's it.
The demand from many of the protesters realized.
This sentence of death.
Hasina's former interior minister also sentenced to death. But this verdict in absentia will likely plunge the country into more uncertainty ahead of planned elections in February. The days leading up to the verdict were marred by bomb explosions and torched vehicles. Hasina is living in exile in India, where she fled after the student protests toppled her government in 2024. And New Delhi has so far refused Dhaka's requests to extradite her. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders have tackled their way to the Grey Cup glory. And it was the first Cup win for the team in 12 years. The Roughriders beat the Montreal Alouettes 25-17 in Winnipeg. A parade will celebrate the victors tomorrow in Regina. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Monday morning. How you doing, everyone? A little bit of a Grey Cup hangover, maybe. A little tired watching the game. Had some fun with friends. Winnipeg put on a good show. Thanks for joining us. We are live in downtown Winnipeg on CBC's Information Radio. I am Marcy Marcusa with our team here. Thanks for being here. A nice crisp day ahead for your Monday. Pretty similar weather to what we've had throughout the weekend. This hour on the program, what should have been a simple cancellation for a Rogers customer, as you may have heard on World Report, turned into 7 hours of on-hold music and frustration. He is not alone. We're going to hear why so many Canadians say getting help from their telecom provider feels impossible. So we're going to expand on the story you've just heard, and we're going to have more details on the Manitoban at the heart of it. Also at 7:40, conflict in the workplace. Is it inevitable? How do you deal with it? We're going to start a new series all about it this hour on Information Radio. Plus, we'll hear about Manitoba's latest plan to recruit doctors from Quebec. Right now, Heather Wells with headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, Manitoba's premier says a lot of tires are being kicked right now. The province is spending another $51 million on the Port of Churchill and the Hudson Bay Railway. Wab Canoe says that cash will cover engineering of rail bed upgrades to allow for heavier loads, possibly along a new route. The province also is studying ice-breaking needs for the potential of year-round shipping out of Churchill. The port expansion, though, still is not on a federal list of fast-tracked major projects. Marking the anniversary of the execution of Louis Riel, dignitaries came out to honor the leader of the Red River Métis on the 140th anniversary of his execution in Regina. Mark Carney, the first sitting prime minister to take part in an event to honor Riel, he says after his execution, a young nation was divided, but now Riel's legacy helps unite a maturing nation. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
Abby, how's the weather?
Yeah, most of the southern parts of the province enjoying clear skies and now, and some light snow still lingering far north. Winnipeg, we are at -4. It's clear outside. Just some misty conditions outside the city. We will see that clear as we get into the morning. We warm up to a high near 3 degrees with light breeze before we drop to -6 later tonight across the southern part of the province. We're looking at -6 to -10. Up north, we're seeing temperatures around -8 to -12 with light snow continuing around Thompson and Churchill. So overall, the province is seeing cool, mostly calm day ahead with a mix of sun and clouds across the south and on and off light snow further north as you travel. Winnipeg right now, we sit at -4 and it's clear outside.
I started with the decorating for Christmas.
Oh,
I did.
tell.
I did. I bit the bullet. I'll tell you what, I always start sort of Christmas light. I call it wintry. That's for the sake of my husband who's like, wait till December 1st. But I call it wintry. So I'll put up like wreaths, but I won't put bows on them. Or I'll put up like little trees, but like with woodland creatures, but they won't have like ribbons or like ornaments on them. Corey Funk is laughing his head off in here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's you just may as well just lean in, just go full Christmas. Just like
I can't.
I did my annual snow, winter walk in the malls, and I caught this very like almost 10 feet tall snowman in one of the stores, and it was just making this ho 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 sound. I'm like, do I want to buy that?
Abby and I love Christmas. Did you get it?
No, I was just there staring at it, and I'm like, ah.
Corey's face looks like he ate a sour piece of food.
I'm
a
kind of a December 1st kind of guy.
Yeah,
maybe last weekend in November.
Oh,
I like to kind of compact it.
So you should support my wintry start.
Nah, I think you gotta it's just all or nothing starting December 1st.
Okay.
Weather's done. Traffic is how?
There's a couple things to keep an eye out for. Westbound William at Lydia, according to the Winnipeg Traffic Management Center, there is emergency vehicles blocking westbound William at Lydia, and the city says avoid the area if possible right now. So that's westbound William at Lydia. Not sure exactly what's going on there. Our news desk is looking into that right now. Also, just got a call from a caller who goes by the Quick Quaker westbound Broadway at Sherbrooke. They just saw a collision happen in the westbound curb lane on Broadway, so that far right lane at Sherbrooke. So that could also cause some backups there as well. Thanks for that call. If you see anything else going on out there, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. If you see actually what's going on at William and Lydia, would love to get a call on that as well for some more details. That number to call, 204-788-3093.
Wow, I just got to take a moment for the sky. If you're watching on our YouTube stream, it's just beautiful with the sun coming up this morning. So many pinks and vibrant colors in it this morning. Lovely. Next on the show, let's return to that story that you might have caught at the top of World Report about Rogers. For a lot of Canadians, getting help from telecom providers can feel like a full-time job. And two Rogers customers, one here in Winnipeg, another on Pender Island, BC, say what should have been a routine service call turned into weeks of frustration. Their stories reveal a lot about the state of customer service in Canada's telecom industry overall. Erica Johnson joined us to talk about her Go Public investigation in some detail. She spoke with Corey, actually, on Friday.
Good morning.
Good morning, Corey. Good morning, Corey.
Let me guess. So these people spent hours on hold.
How did you know? How did you know? Yes. This all started when we heard from a Winnipegger, Anil Setha. He contacted us after what he describes as an incredibly frustrating experience trying to cancel his internet service with Rogers. He decided to cancel it because he got a better deal with another provider. He thought it would be easy, that he'd go online, click a couple of buttons, and voila, his service would be canceled. But instead, he says, it took about 7 hours over several days, time spent on hold, getting disconnected, getting passed from agent to agent again and again.
It was a non-stop theme of we are having a heavy call volume.
He says no matter when he called or what day, he couldn't reach anyone who could cancel his service. And then when he finally did reach someone, they told him that they couldn't cancel on the phone. He actually had to send them an email.
The very first reaction in my mind was like, are you kidding me? Like, first, you don't let me cancel online. Then there's no support mechanism over the phone. Finally, I get a hold of someone, and then they're asking me to go back to email.
Wow. Okay.
So extremely frustrating for him, right? And he says it left him wondering how anyone could navigate the system. What if you're a senior? What if you're a newcomer to Canada? And he felt exasperated that something that was so easy to sign up for would be so difficult to cancel.
And he's obviously not alone in this experience. There's other people kind of stuck in the queue as well, eh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we have heard from dozens of people who are unhappy. You go to social media, there are all kinds of posts from customers complaining about long wait times, hours and hours, complicated cancellation procedures, poor service. Many say that the problem is Canada's dominance, the monopoly that exists in the telecom industry in Canada. Bell, TELUS, and Rogers, they account for about 90% of the revenue in the telecommunications market. We spoke to Eugene Chan. He's a marketing prof at the Ted Rogers School of Management. And he says Rogers' takeover of Shaw in 2023 only compounded that lack of competition.
It reduces the need for these telcos to compete and to provide good customer service because they think that customers need us, and so we don't really need to do anything to improve our service.
And Chan says without real competition and few federal rules around customer service, big telcos have little incentive to do any better. Rogers declined an on-camera interview request, but they sent us a statement and they said they have millions of customer interactions every month and that they work hard to deliver a great experience.
And meantime, though, Rogers it just cut ties with a big call center too, didn't it?
Well, yeah, they did. It recently ended its contract with a third-party call center called Foundever. It employed hundreds of customer service agents, people who answer those phones when you call in. Neither Rogers nor Foundever would say whether those jobs have been moved and how many positions were actually lost in that layoff. We did speak to two former employees at that call center, though, and they say they worry things are going to get worse, that they spent much of the last year training up an AI system. So it would listen in and then it would start making prompts about what the agent should be offering or saying or doing for the customer. One agent said that he worries that Rogers policies require agents to upsell or sell products to people on every call, and that the lack of a personal touch with an AI system, would be lost or might be lost. And he worries, for instance, if somebody's calling in because a family member has died and they need to cancel the service, he worries how sensitive an AI prompt is going to be.
I understand you actually spoke to someone on the West Coast looking for just, that human connection.
Yeah, we did. We spoke to Fran Monroe, who lives on one of the Gulf Islands off the BC coast, Pender Island. A few months ago, a technician came to her house to replace her modem. And then soon after, she and her husband started getting two bills, one for her old account, and then there was a new account that was created. And the old account was never shut down. And like Anil Setha, she says she spent hours on hold, was repeatedly transferred between departments, and still couldn't find anyone who could help her.
I wasted a lot of time and some sleepless nights wondering, what am I doing wrong here? Why can I not get in touch with anybody? It's just extremely frustrating.
She only got help after she reached out to the CCTS, the Commission for Complaints for Telecom Television Services. It's an independent ombudsman that resolves disputed disputes between customers and their telco providers. It doesn't handle general customer service complaints, though, but it was able to help in this case because it was a billing error. Rogers apologized. It offered Monroe to lower her monthly bill by $40 and gave her a $250 goodwill credit.
So then, if it takes an ombudsman to fix a billing mistake, what does that say about customer service in general across Canada?
Well, experts we spoke to say it shows a system that's broken and underregulated. Other countries are taking action. Now, they point to Spain, which is drafting a law that will require the vast majority of companies, big companies, to answer the phone within 3 minutes. The European Union is making it easier to cancel contracts. Germany already requires 2-click cancellations, meaning it shouldn't take more than 2 clicks to end a service. But here in Canada, there are no such laws. We spoke to Keldon Bester with the Canadian Anti-Monopoly Project, and he says Canadians are the victim of a telco oligopoly.
They sort of move in a pack, whether it's on the price of plans, the availability of international roaming, whatever product attributes those are. And so when you really don't have a lot of competitive differentiation, you're bringing the sort of incentive to switch down.
And he says it's time for new rules to make canceling or resolving issues simple, not a marathon of hold music.
So then, what do we do while we wait for that to happen besides listen to hold music?
Well, people like Anil Setha are left on their own. After numerous phone calls, though, he estimates it took about 7 hours over several days. He was finally able to say goodbye to Rogers, and says, unfortunately, he couldn't say goodbye to his lasting frustration.
Well, thank you very much.
Good to talk to you, Corey.
Reporter Erica Johnson in conversation on Friday with the CBC's Corey Funk. If you have a story you want Erica and her Go Public team to investigate, remember they're just an email away. gopublic@cbc.ca. Well, speaking of Corey, I have him in studio live with us here because, of course, he's covering the commute today. But you're not here for that. We're here actually to talk about December 5th.
Yes, so that is Make the Season Kind, our day that we dedicate to support of harvest. We raise money and get people to ask people to donate and tell stories about harvest and the food needs that we have in our community.
So this is every year. CBC across the country actually connects with different local food banks. And so, yes, Corey's right, Harvest Manitoba and its member agencies. So that's food banks all across the province that it supports, different meal programs. And we have a day of music and programming and highlight the needs in our community. And the needs are varied. I know you've had a bit of a preview to what it looks like this year where we live because you were at Harvest last week.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed, I've actually pretty much been doing this now for the past 6 years. Every year we kind of go to Harvest. I spend time talking to people. And what I've noticed and what Harvest has noticed too is that you're seeing more working people. Like I went there and pretty much everyone who spoke to me on mic either was working part-time and just couldn't make things work, or they were working maybe a few months ago, but then they had like just lost their job.
Yeah.
I talked to one guy who he lost his job due to mental health issues. And now he's coming to Harvest to help support his wife who is working. But she's just not making enough to get by. He's got an autistic teenager and he's just needs to come just to help make ends meet.
It's interesting because, well, not interesting. It maybe you can extrapolate this logically, but when we visit shelters in Winnipeg too, houseless shelters where people are staying, that's also the trend there, right? People actually are getting up at a shelter and then going to work. So I know Corey will have more in our show come December 5th about that family. Thanks for sharing a bit of what you heard last week.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, so that show coming up on December 5th, it'll be full of stories. And obviously it'll be a moment for us all together to come together and give if we can. So that is our day of to make the season kind. December 5th here at CBC Manitoba in partnership with Harvest Manitoba. And Food Banks Canada, you might recall, also released its annual report card this year on food insecurity across the country. And our country received a near failing grade of D as people continue to need those supports. It is 7:25 a.m. Let's turn to much different things. It's time for sports. Scott Regehr joins us. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Marcy.
So the Saskatchewan Roughriders are Grey Cup champions, and it happened in Winnipeg. But let's just move on and talk about the great defense. Man, holy moly.
Yeah, Riders Grey Cup champs, although at times last night, Marcy, I wondered whether we'd be saying that this morning. The Riders built up an early lead, then watched as Montreal whittled away at it. With under 3 minutes to play, the Alouettes were right near Saskatchewan's goal line and brought in backup quarterback Shea Patterson to run the ball in. Instead, Tavon Campbell forced Patterson to fumble. Marcus Sayles jumped on the ball, and Saskatchewan was able to hold on from there. It is their first Grey Cup in a dozen years, and veteran quarterback Trevor Harris was the catalyst, throwing for more than 300 yards while winning the game's MVP award. Ever the team player, Marcy, Harris deferred to his young sons, TJ and Trace, when reporters asked him what it all meant.
Very past my bedtime, but I want to stay up because we just won the thing that all of CFL players dream of. We are the champs.
That's good. That's good. Might say something wild here.
Good call, Dad. But Harris made many good calls yesterday, Marcy, like throwing to the eventual Canadian player of the game, Sam Emilus, 10 times successfully, or handing the ball off to A.J. Ouellette, who ran for 83 yards and a touchdown. But the guy who was really pulling the strings last night was Riders offensive coordinator Mark Mueller.
You know, I grew up watching highlight films of the 94 West Final, the 98 East Final, and like these big plays at the end of the game. And now to have a memory of my own like that is really cool. People walk around Regina and people know that they were part of a Grey Cup team, no matter how big or how small. And to be able to be a part of that, we're the champions forever, and we'll be able to come back and be part of this organization forever as well. It's really special.
Mark Mueller, who bleeds green and white, Marcy, just like his granddad did. That would be Riders legend Ron Lancaster.
Crazy.
The Grey Cup parade goes tomorrow from Regina. Former Bombers kicker Troy Westwood was among the first to tweet after last night's championship game, and he wrote, "Congratulations to the Saskatchewan Roughriders on their 5th Grey Cup. The team now officially has more Grey Cups than their average fan has teeth." Troy Westwood has history in this regard.
Yeah, let's remember he's the one that named the Banjo Bowl
That's right.
for that comment years ago that I'm not going to repeat because I don't even know if we should in 2025.
Maybe not.
All right, let's go to tennis. A controversial end to the year to the year for the sport, really.
Yeah, so this revolves around players' commitment to representing their countries, Marcy. World number 2 Jannik Sinner, fit enough to win the ATP finals yesterday, but the Italian has withdrawn from the Davis Cup later this week, citing fatigue. World number 1 Carlos Alcaraz says he understands.
It's normal because the season has been so long, and I would say they got to do something about it to make the Davis Cup unique. I think if the tournament is played every 2 years, the commitment of the players, it's going to be even more because it's different and you're not able to play every year.
Yeah, Alcaraz has a point. Other sports like soccer might have major tournaments like the Euros or the World Cup, but they are contested every 2 years, and many believe tennis asks way too much of its athletes. You only have to look at Canada winning the Davis Cup a few years ago. Now their best players aren't suiting up for the country, citing fatigue. And just before I head off, the World Cup of Soccer next summer, we have our latest qualifier, Norway, led by who else? The best scorer on the planet, Erling Haaland. They beat the Italians, so the Norwegians through to the tournament for the first time since 1998. Meanwhile, Ireland, there was drama yesterday in Budapest.
One last throw of the dice. It's all on this
Troy Parrott. That is unbelievable. He scored a hat-trick. And right at the death.
Now, all that excitement, they didn't actually qualify for the World Cup with that win over Hungary, but they've made it to the playoffs in March, and I'll definitely have the commentary again then, because I can only imagine if they actually get through to the tournament.
No kidding. All right, thanks, Scott.
You bet.
Scott Regehr with Morning Sports. Westbound Broadway at Sherbrooke could be a problem. Westbound William at Lydia, avoid it, we're being told. 788-3093 if you have more info. It's coming up to news time here. I just want to briefly mention that we start our series on conflict in the workplace after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it is -4. We're still basking in that above seasonal weather, warmer than usual for this time of year, with a high today of 3 as the sky clears out. Manitoba is devoting more money towards expansion of the Port of Churchill. But as CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, the Northern Manitoba mega project still does not have a green light from the federal government.
Seamless handoffs, and we'll do a bit of the ground game.
Football metaphors from Prime Minister Mark Carney hours before the Grey Cup in Winnipeg. The PM met with Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew about the expansion of the Port of Churchill. The project could involve rail line upgrades, new port facilities, and year-round operations. Carney reaffirmed his interest.
Nothing more important than Port of Churchill and everything that brings together.
But the port expansion is still not on the federal list of fast-track major projects, even after the province announced another $51 million for the Hudson Bay Railway and the Port of Churchill. Premier Wab Kinew says the money will pay for engineering toward allowing the railway to carry heavier loads, perhaps along a new route.
We're going to be talking about things like the potential route and what is the best way to get products to the coast. So a lot of tires being kicked, a lot of studying going on right now.
Kinew said he hopes to announce more about the port expansion in the spring. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The future of Carney's Liberal minority government will be determined today. MPs vote on the Liberal budget, and because it is a confidence vote, if it doesn't pass, the government will fall. As it stands now, Liberals do not have the opposition support they need. The Conservatives and Bloc Québécois are both voting no, as are the New Democrats and the Green Party's lone MP, Elizabeth May.
I'm still talking to ministers and representatives from the Prime Minister's office and others to see what could we do to affect my vote, because right now I'm a no.
The Liberals need 2 opposition votes for the budget to be accepted, or if 2 MPs abstain from voting, that would clear the way for the budget to pass. And that is believed to be the most likely outcome, with most parties reluctant to trigger a second general election this year. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. The Manitoba Métis Federation says Mark Carney is the first sitting prime minister to honor Louis Riel on the anniversary of his death. Yesterday was the 140th anniversary of Riel's execution in Regina on charges of treason for leading the Northwest Rebellion. Carney laid a wreath at Riel's grave in St. Boniface. David Chartrand heads the Manitoba Métis Federation.
I'll share this with you, Mr. Prime Minister. He said, one day this country will recognize me for the good I've done. That day is here by you coming here personally. So thank you very much.
For his part, Carney says after Riel's execution, a young nation was divided, but his legacy now helps to unite a maturing nation. Fewer Manitobans are choosing to have medically assisted deaths in recent years. Data from Shared Health shows the number of people accessing MAID has seen small declines since 2022. Registered nurse Paul McGuinness is a MAID educator. He worries Manitoba's recent dip points to access issues.
Manitoba does have a higher rural population than the Canadian average. And we know that just as with all other healthcare, there are barriers for folks that live in rural areas.
Shared Health says there are 18 practitioners who provide MAID across all of Manitoba. Only 3 work in rural communities. Well, the CFL has a new Grey Cup champion.
Into the end zone, deflected, and it falls to the field. And Gray has just turned green and white. The Saskatchewan Roughriders and Trevor Harris have won the Grey Cup.
In Winnipeg last night before a sellout crowd. Saskatchewan Roughriders winning this year's Grey Cup. The Riders beating Montreal 25-17 with Saskatchewan quarterback Trevor Harris named the game's MVP. For the Rider franchise, it is their 5th Grey Cup title. As for the victory parade, that is set for tomorrow in downtown Regina. Well, even though our Bombers weren't in the big game, fans still showed up in droves, some even at 10 in the morning to set up their tailgate parties at Princess Auto Stadium. Glenn Commission says he never thought about not celebrating the Grey Cup because it is, as he says, the most important game of the year.
It's a way of life, kind of. You're a football fan, you're a football fan. We're fortunate that we were in the Grey Cup 5 years in a row. You know, every once in a while, you got to take a little slow down and regroup and let somebody else have some more fun.
Lots of people had fun. The province expects Grey Cup Week will have brought in $90 million in economic activity. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
You know, I was busy and I kind of regret not going to some of the festivities. Like I heard some of the pre-stuff was just sold out, or a lot of it was, but one of the things was the Watchmen, who I used to love back in the day.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, I wish I would have caught that. I also have to apologize to a listener named Samantha Mitchell, who wrote to me last week, but I was just tied up and on different shifts, and I was training Thursday, Friday, so I wasn't here. But I missed her email. She had asked Heather whether or not it was appropriate to wear her Bombers jersey to the Grey Cup.
Yeah.
Yes, is the answer as well, right? But she just wasn't sure, you know, does it show disrespect for the teams that are in it? And I thought that was a really nice question. But one of the things I've always loved about Grey Cup is that people do, you know, show their pride for whatever team they cheer for. So it becomes a league celebration.
And it really was. People, speaking of league celebrations, people were even wearing CFL league apparel.
Yep. So we saw it all here in Winnipeg. I think by all accounts, we put on a good show. And of course, that bit of irony that the game opened with a rouge.
Yeah.
Which is one of those classic Canadian
That one
rules
point.
that's going to be going away. So, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Heather's still with us, of course, through the morning, as is Abby Adeyemi. It's time for your regional forecast on CBC.
Yeah, we still have light snow falling in the northern part of the province, but looking at conditions down south, mainly clear in Winnipeg, -4 at this time. We're going to see more clear conditions into the morning with a gentle breeze and a high near 3 degrees. The Pembina Valley region, we're looking at -7 at this time, also clear out there, warming up to 4 degrees. Brandon is at -6 and clear. Expect a mix of sun and clouds later, warming up to 4 degrees. In the Parkland region, Dauphin, you are sitting at -10 at this time. You got partly cloudy conditions with patchy fog that should lift to a mix of sun and clouds later, warming up to 3 degrees. Gimli is about a -10 at this time, expecting a mix of sun and clouds today, high of 2 degrees. And in the powerful influence surrounding communities, we're looking at between -8 and -10 at this time, clear out there. Expect a mix of sun and clouds later with a slim chance of light snow reaching high near -3. Thompson is at -12. Light snow falling this morning. Expect periods of light snow to continue through the day. You warm up to -6. Churchill -7 at this time. Light snow and drifting snow you're feeling in that part of the province. It's going to be a snowy day. You see high around -4. So cross board, chilly, most quiet morning. The sun returning to the south while we're seeing light snow lingering in parts of the north. Winnipeg right now sits at -4.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
There are a couple problems this Monday morning on your commute. Corey has those.
Yes, all morning there's been an issue on westbound William at Lydia. What we know right now is the city has posted on the Traffic Management Center that there's emergency crews blocking westbound William at Lydia, and they're saying to avoid the area. So keep that in mind. As well, got a call just about 20 minutes or so ago from someone who goes by the Quick Quaker. He said westbound Broadway at Sherbrooke, there's a multi-vehicle collision that has blocked the right curb lane. That's westbound Broadway at Sherbrooke, so that may be causing some backups for folks. If you see anything else going on out there, though, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line. Let folks know what you're seeing out there. That number, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, it's Monday morning, back to work for a lot of people if you had the weekend off. We're starting a series this week about something that happens at work. The workplace is where most of us spend most of our time, actually. But how do you encounter conflict where you work? How do you meet that? How often do you encounter it? A report from Myers-Briggs Company in 2022 found that employees spend more than 4 hours a week dealing with conflict. We wanted to hear from Winnipeggers about some of their experiences at work. So to start our series this morning, CBC's Jim Agapito talked to some people about that and also got their suggestions about the best ways to handle workplace disputes.
Mary Lou Dreger. Workplace conflict. I understand that you are retired, you said?
I am.
Have you experienced workplace conflict, and what was it?
Of course. I was a teacher. There's a lot of politics in education. So yeah, there were lots of conflicts. Conflicts with the government about the way I should be teaching, conflicts with fellow staff members with whom I didn't necessarily always agree. But I loved my job, and by and large, people were wonderful. But yes, there were always conflicts. And between parents who weren't happy with the job I was doing either. Yeah, so that happened. Yeah.
How do you resolve then a conflict like that?
Some conflicts with parents, if I just went out of my way to connect with them and talk with them and go the second mile with their children, that seemed to resolve it. With colleagues, I guess you had to have face-to-face discussions, and some of them were hard, and sometimes they got resolved and sometimes they didn't.
Generationally speaking, do you think that that's, different in how you have to approach conflict?
I think probably in my generation, we had more of an idea that we had to listen to our superiors and maybe not confront them as much because we wanted to keep our jobs. I think I'm not unhappy that that's changed. I think maybe just from thinking about young people today, they're maybe a little bit more outspoken. They maybe assert their rights a little more, especially women. So I'm not saying that it's bad, but perhaps there is more conflict now because people are sticking up for themselves a little more.
My name is Ben McCorkle. I am definitely a Gen Xer. I'm an IT professional.
Have you ever been in a workplace conflict, and can you tell me about that?
Oh, absolutely. Conflicts can come anywhere from clashing of personalities to conflict of work to getting things done. And the big thing of resolving any type of workplace conflict is to fully understand what that conflict is, why it occurs, and what you can do to stop it and prevent it from happening in the future.
And when you do find yourself in a conflict, what do you do?
I hope you don't find it coming around again, and hopefully the reason that conflict was actually there was a result of you just simply not understanding something and not doing something blatantly wrong.
My name's Isaiah Hunt. I am Generation Z.
Have you ever experienced a workplace conflict?
Not with coworkers, but with some managerial positions and stuff. There's some managers out there who are just get that power to their head, Sometimes it gets resolved, sometimes it doesn't, but when it comes to employees, not necessarily a lot of workplace conflicts where it's impeding my work or anything like that. It's just makes a bad environment for a bunch of workers, Yeah, whenever someone tries to bother me at work, I'm just hey man, I'm trying to do my job, I'm here to get my bills paid. I don't need any more headaches here. I already got a headache coming to work.
And what do you do for work, if you mind me asking?
I do security at Mainstay Suites.
Do you think the way that different generations deal with conflict?
Different generation, they probably go for go to HR over some bacon sandwich, bologna sandwich or something like that. But if I'm at work and I see my sandwich gone and what coworker has some crumbs on his fingers or something like that, I'm just gonna be hey bro, come on, my name's already on there, man, but when we resolve it quickly, surely he'd be just give me a sandwich from McDonald's, something that would be all right. But if I was older generation, they go straight to the manager, make it a whole big deal and all that, it's just I don't know, I feel people make headaches where they're not supposed to be, So I usually quickly resolve my spiels with my coworkers pretty fairly,
My name is Ralph Erb. I'm millennial. I have experienced workplace conflict. It was back in 2010 at Burger King. There was one of our fellow employees that got kicked off at the management, stormed out, slammed the door, and it scared me quite a bit. Afterwards, I talked to the management and told them that it scared me a little bit, and they dealt with it accordingly. So,
how would you say you deal with conflict personally?
Not in the best of ways, to be honest, but I'm trying to get better at it every day. So,
my name is Renindi Gunasekar. I'm Gen Z.
Have you ever experienced workplace conflict, and what was it?
I'd say not anything that I was actively involved in, but with the people around me, yes. It's very petty things, though, I'd say. I work in fast food, so it's just a lot of people just not getting along with each other that well, and just having issues with other people's work ethics, stuff like that.
How do you then resolve conflict?
Oh, okay, good question. Well, for me, I'm huge on communication, so I would always try and talk it out as much as possible, and that's my go-to, is just try to talk it out, and if it doesn't work out, then I don't know, maybe take it to the higher ups kind of thing, but yeah.
CBC's Jim Agapito kicking off our series with your voices, some Winnipeggers about conflicts they've experienced in the workplace. Now, still ahead in our series after 8 o'clock, coming up.
Conflict at work is not necessarily a bad thing, right? In fact, if there's no conflict, it typically means that people are not invested in their workplace.
That is registered psychotherapist and behavior sciences professor Laura Kavanaugh. She's an expert on workplace conflict. She will join us after 8 to walk us through why conflict happens, how people define it differently, what's personality got to do with it, and also how this is becoming an issue for those that have to deal with conflict in the workplace and may not be trained to do so. So we're talking about managers and higher ups. So this is all coming up if you want to weigh in on workplace conflict. How's it affected or impacted you? 788-3205.
I'm Suresh Das. I've spent my career writing about the local favorites that make Canada's food scene truly unique. I bit into a chili. Woo! From vibrant street food to comforting traditional dishes.
The most important ingredients in jollof rice, love.
To innovative, personal twists. Butter chicken lasagna.
Butter chicken lasagna, that's what made it all happen.
I believe every bite tells a story. Now, I want to share those stories with you.
New series Locals Welcome with Suresh Das. Watch free on CBC Gem.
Well, up next, we have a little bit of music from Ariel Posen, and we thought this would be good to play because we just come out of a moment where downtown was packed full of people, right, for the Grey Cup, and all kinds of people making our city buzzy with excitement and just with people on the streets. This is his tune called Downtown on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube.
City lights don't shine as bright as they used to. And the streets don't feel the same as when they were new. Feeling visible in a crowd, I fall asleep to the sound. I'm never gonna drown it out. Every time I'm back, I'm reminded that love lives downtown in my heart. Two more stars on the train line to 4th Avenue. Where I first broke down, got lost, but then I found you. And even though it's dark at night, you can see it in a different light. Every time I'm back, I'm reminded that love lives downtown in my heart. Every day it changes, it doesn't know what my name is, but love lives downtown in my heart. This beat in my chest is all I've got left, but it's harder to leave now, 'cause love lives downtown.
Soulful way to start a Monday morning. Ariel Posen in downtown on CBC 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. Letting it fade away. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us here on the show. Nice to have you along. Hopefully your Monday's going fine so far. You shouldn't need to bundle up too much. It's -4. Our high, though, is going to be 3, and it should be clearing this morning, which means we'll see some sunshine, which is always the key to this time of year, making it feel nice, right? Well, next on the show, as we've been reporting, the Manitoba government has been on a mission to try and recruit more doctors from out of province and all across North America. On our show, we recently had an American doctor who came to work here. The political climate in the U.S. has been one of the reasons for some doctors making the move to Manitoba. But now Manitoba is also trying to woo Quebec physicians. The province is banking on its bilingualism to attract Francophone health experts. And it all comes amid growing tension between doctors and the Quebec government over the passing of Bill 2. CBC Radio Canada's reporter Catherine Merot has been working on the story, and she's in studio with her report about it. Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
So can we start with what's happening in Quebec? What is Bill 2? Why are doctors there unhappy?
Yeah, Bill 2 is a legislation that takes effect in the new year and will impact how doctors are paid because it will link compensation to performance targets relating to the number of patients doctors have. The legislation would also impose fines up to $20,000 per day on doctors who take, quote, concerted action to challenge the government's policies. Since the bill passed last month, there has been an exodus of doctors there, many of them going to Ontario, being tempted as well by New Brunswick, who put out an ad targeted towards the bilingual doctors, where they say they feel more supported. And that support is something that did come up when I spoke to a doctor here in Manitoba who trained as a physician in Quebec, but chose to come work here in Winnipeg. She's been here for 3 years now. Her name is Dr. Annie Drapeau. She's the neurosurgery residency program director and pediatric neurosurgery service lead at Winnipeg's Health Sciences Center. So I asked her how Manitoba compared to Quebec and to the U.S., where she also worked for 6 years prior to moving to Manitoba. Here's what Annie Drapeau had to say.
Here, I really feel supported and heard, and either at the hospital level or the government or my colleagues or my leadership, really about, what are some of the challenges that we have. And there's no quick fixes, but it does seem like people are trying to work towards a more broader solution. So I think that's a really great place to be, where you feel respected and heard, and there's momentum, and you see things changing in the right direction.
And what has our province said about the new recruitment campaign?
Well, in a written statement, Health Minister Uzoma Azagwara speaks about what Manitoba has to offer. I'm going to quote them. We're showcasing Manitoba as a welcoming and affordable place where physicians can build rewarding careers with an excellent quality of life. We offer a career in strong public healthcare system, one that serves a diverse population, including French-speaking communities, and direct one-on-one support for physicians looking to become unlicensed in our province. End of quote. The minister says it's a targeted digital recruitment campaign emphasizing Manitoba's reduced regulatory burden, increased autonomy, opportunities to build their practice in a large Francophone community.
Targeted is right. I mean, that last part of that quote, direct one-on-one support for physicians looking to become licensed in our province and highlighting the bilingualism. Mm-hmm. How much interest has there been from Quebec doctors wanting to come work in Manitoba then?
So I actually reached out to Doctors Manitoba to see if they'd heard from Quebec doctors. Here's what they shared in a written statement on Friday. We had a lot of interest from Quebec physicians about opportunities in Manitoba. So just last week, this was now 10 days ago, at the Family Medicine Forum, which is a major national conference that was held this year in Winnipeg. I'm quoting still, our booth was busy with physicians from other provinces interested in Manitoba, particularly colleagues from Quebec. We are connecting those with physicians from the Manitoba Government Recruitment Office and are happy to support their transition in practice here and when they relocate to Manitoba. So going back to the end of quote. Mm-hmm. Going back to the province's efforts to recruit Quebec doctors, in addition to the digital campaign, a virtual webinar for French-speaking physicians is being offered no later than today As of last week, more than 100 physicians had signed up for it. So the webinar, Marcy, will provide physicians with a clear understanding of what makes Manitoba a uniquely attractive place to live. This is according to the province, work and build a career in medicine. And attendees will also hear directly from Francophone physicians who have made the choice to move to Manitoba.
What has Dr. Drapeau been hearing from her Quebec counterparts about the working conditions and political climate there then?
So she definitely highlighted, again, the lack of support her colleagues are getting in Quebec. She does say some of the issues are similar between our two provinces, the lack of staff, for instance, and administrative support. However, she's hearing from her Quebec colleagues stories about having to perform non-medical tasks because of shortages, like changing beds between patients. So, and she's heard from all of them that there is definitely people moving or intending to move to she said Ontario and New Brunswick. So according to her, they feel exhausted, blamed for the current situation, and they feel pressure to find solutions and they don't feel respected. A lot of her colleagues feel very hurt by the situation in Quebec, and I'm quoting her here. They talk about a moral injury. So she says her old classmates have told her about thinking to moving to those two other provinces, but not to Manitoba, something she is trying to change herself.
I've definitely been the one to mention Manitoba and to tell them to think about it because it's a great place to live and to work. Many of them have mentioned that there's been an increase in requests for licenses to practice in Ontario and New Brunswick. And as soon as I mentioned Manitoba and, being a bilingual province for the most part, they all kind of, act surprised and go, oh yeah, I didn't think of Manitoba. So I definitely think we have an opportunity here to recruit and be visible and encourage people to think about Manitoba because it's a great place to live and to work.
So obviously she's been championing this. Sounds like she thinks the grass, for her at least, is greener here.
Yeah, well, she repeated many times during the interview, il fait bon vivre ici, or life is really good here. And so the quality of life was definitely something that came up frequently. But for her, the bilingual aspect is definitely something that is a strong factor in her staying here. So I asked her about the presence of French professionally, what it changed for her and personally as well.
I will say this to anybody who wants to hear it, but French is really present here in Manitoba and Winnipeg and many of, the surrounding communities. And in my work, I work at an English hospital, but French is definitely present with many of my patients, some of the staff. I definitely appreciate, how important it is to be bilingual for some of the French Manitobans who feel more comfortable speaking in French, and actually a lot of immigrant patients. And you'll see them physically relax and be kind of, feel a little less stressed to be talking to a doctor if they can be heard and spoken to in French.
Thanks for adding to our series of conversations now about doctor recruitment outside the province, Catherine. Appreciate having you here.
My pleasure.
That is Radio-Canada reporter Catherine Marot, live in Studio 15 with us in the show. Time to get to what's happening in our news headlines. Let's go to Heather Wells in our news department.
Good morning. Well, the numbers are just in, and Canada's inflation rate eased off a little bit last month, falling to 2.2% from 2.4% in September. However, in Manitoba, inflation edged slightly higher, up to 3% from 2.9%. We're going to hear what is impacting inflation coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather. -4, mainly cloudy in Winnipeg right now. Westbound Broadway at Sherbrooke and westbound William at Lydia could be issues in traffic. Still ahead, workplace conflict. We're going to get into it coming up after 8 as we continue our series looking at that as a problem.
On Q. Kathy Reichs is not just a forensic anthropologist, she's also a best-selling author. Her dozens of books have sold millions of copies, inspired the hit TV show Bones. She'll be here to talk about her latest novel, why she started writing in the first place, and how in your work you cope with that much tragedy.
I think you have to be a certain psychological makeup.
Q with Tom Power, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
The best-selling author John Irving has a new novel. Queen Esther returns to the world of his 1985 bestseller The Cider House Rules with a new story and familiar characters. John Irving on the power of reading, coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. Some tense hours today in Ottawa. The Carney government is approaching the confidence vote on its budget. If it is not passed, the government falls and Canadians go to another election. And at this point, it is not clear the minority government has the votes it needs. Janice McGregor is in our parliamentary bureau. Janice, how has all this turned into a game of chicken?
Marcia, everyone says they don't want an election right now, but no one wants to be the first to turn away. So here we are. If the Liberals were secretly hoping to trigger one, this is a funny budget to want to run on. It's not loaded up with short-term goodies for voters. It's a narrative of long-term economic transformation that asks Canadians to be patient, have faith, trust them. Whip Mark Garrison delivered a 100% turnout for the first two budget votes, and he says Liberal MPs are going to be out in force again tonight to pass this agenda. The ball is in the opposition's court.
I leave it to those that have to reflect on that and come to a conclusion on their own.
The 7 New Democrat MPs are meeting this morning to continue their deliberations. In the first two budget votes, it was 4 Conservative MPs who didn't turn up. Even though Pierre Poilievre's office said Matt Genereux wasn't resigning until spring, he didn't vote. Shannon Stubbs' office said she was on medical leave. But the app that MPs use to vote remotely lets a riding be represented so long as an MP can show their face and push a button. The remaining 2, Leila Goodridge and Michael Chong, aren't considered flight risks, but Chong spoke strongly in the House against the budget and then didn't vote to back that up.
So why would members of Parliament be reluctant to abstain?
Well, it's not a great look to be afraid to face the electorate. Even when there's no election on the line, a budget vote is arguably the most important of the sitting. Maybe hard to make a binary choice amid mixed feelings, but as Green Party leader Elizabeth May points out, that's the job.
I don't think I was elected to fail to show up.
The Bloc took itself out of the mix early by declaring its opposition right away. May, on the other hand, has kept negotiating right down to the wire to see if she could force any policy changes in return for her vote.
All right. Thank you, Janice.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Inflation fell to 2.2% last month. That is down 0.2% from the month of September. Statistics Canada is out with its latest consumer price index today. And as many economists predicted, inflation is continuing its cooling trend. The CBC senior business analyst Peter Armstrong has the latest.
This deceleration in price growth is pretty close to what economists had been expecting for the month of October. The two main drivers here were gasoline prices and grocery costs. Now, gasoline was actually down 9.4% year over year in October. In groceries, food prices were still up, but they were up by less than we've grown accustomed to. Food purchased in stores was up 4% in September. Last month, that had slowed all the way down to 3.4%. And if you actually look at groceries month over month instead of year over year, grocery prices actually fell 0.6% in October. That's the largest decline we've seen since September of 2020. Now, these numbers are, as I say, close to expectations, but economists were predicting that inflation would cool even more than it did. And you can bet the Bank of Canada is watching this closely and is likely to see evidence in these numbers that it doesn't need to cut interest rates any further just yet. Peter Armstrong, CBC News, Toronto.
U.S. President Donald Trump is now encouraging Republicans to release the remaining Jeffrey Epstein files. The House is expected to vote on the matter as early as Tuesday. And on social media, Trump said, quote, "We have nothing to hide." He calls the push to release the files a hoax by the Democrats.
So they're using Jeffrey Epstein as a deflection from the tremendous success that we're having as a party.
Just last week, Trump said he would ask the Justice Department to investigate Epstein's ties to the Democratic Party. Many critics see that as another attempt to block the release of the files by making them part of an active investigation. Public health officials in Edmonton say the current tuberculosis outbreak is not a threat to the general public, but it is for people who are homeless. And that has health experts calling for more support. Sam Sampson reports.
I still have to go through medical procedures.
Andre Tenio doesn't know when he contracted tuberculosis last summer, but he's been living with the issues ever since. The airborne illness affected his lungs, stomach, colon, and even parts of his spine. That's why he's so concerned the disease has spread in Alberta's capital.
I can just imagine what it's like when you are living in a circumstance where you don't have a house, you don't have food.
Local health officials say there's a tuberculosis outbreak in Edmonton's inner city. It was declared in October when 2 people were diagnosed with the same strain, suggesting local transmission. A November memo to emergency departments asks frontline workers to test patients who are experiencing homelessness and who've had a cough for more than 2 weeks. Ryan Cooper is the medical director of Alberta's TB program. He says this outbreak is complex, but he's not concerned about widespread transmission.
We usually estimate about 120 hours within the same household to see transmission. And so I think riding on the train or being on the street outdoors present any risk for others.
Robin Harrison is an adult infectious diseases specialist who treats patients in Edmonton. She says this outbreak is a reminder to boost supports for people experiencing homelessness.
Because when we start to see outbreaks in vulnerable areas, it's a sign there's too much stress out there. We need support to get people those basic, we call them social determinants of health.
The province says health officials are meeting with inner city agencies to provide support and screening. Sam Sampson, CBC News, Edmonton.
Bangladesh's ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been convicted of crimes against humanity and she has been sentenced to death.
It is hereby ordered that accused Sheikh Hasina be found guilty on 3 counts.
A special tribunal found Hasina and her former home minister were responsible for the killing of hundreds of people during a student-led uprising in the summer of 2024. The United Nations estimates as many as 1,400 people were killed in the violence. Hasina has called the tribunal a kangaroo court. She is in exile in India and was tried in absentia. Bangladesh is now calling on India to extradite the former prime minister. Police in Nigeria say gunmen have abducted 25 girls from a government boarding school. The assailants attacked the school in Kebbi State earlier this morning. They reportedly killed the school's vice principal and injured a security guard. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Northwest Nigeria is experiencing a recurrence in mass abductions from schools, often by armed gangs seeking ransom payments. Britain's opposition parties say the government's major overhaul of asylum policy does not go far enough. The changes make asylum status temporary, and refugees could be returned to their home country if it becomes safe. As Crystal Gomansing reports, Britain's government says this will restore order at borders.
That it's actually a difficult and delicate business.
Former UK Supreme Court Judge Jonathan Sumption anticipates challenges ahead for the UK. The Labour government is currently bound by rules of the European Convention on Human Rights. Changes to rules around refugees and asylum seekers could be challenged in the Strasbourg court. Sumption says rights enshrined by the court, such as freedom from slavery, human trafficking, freedom of religion and security, are precious. The UK could withdraw from the convention and write its own laws.
You can protect human rights very effectively without being party to the ECHR. Countries like Canada and New Zealand, which derive their basic legal principles from the UK, have done it very successfully.
Exactly how the UK will reform immigration will be made clear by the Home Secretary later today. Shabana Mahmood already said sanctuary will not be a guaranteed path to permanent settlement. When it becomes safe in their home country, people should be sent back. The UK may also stop granting visas to people from African countries, which are seen as uncooperative in taking back illegal immigrants. Matt Vickers is the Shadow Minister of State.
But the reality is this is small steps, some small steps in the right direction, but largely gimmicks.
The Labour government is under pressure to control the number of people entering the country illegally. The Home Office says close to 40,000 have come this year alone. Crystal Gomansing, CBC News, London.
Voters in Chile will be heading to the polls again in just a few weeks.
El próximo domingo 14 de diciembre, Chile
President Gabriel Boric announces a runoff vote on December 14. No clear winner emerged from yesterday's presidential election. The race now becomes a showdown between Chile's far-right Republican candidate and the far-left communist contender. That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good Monday morning, everyone. Hopefully you had a great weekend and maybe you had some fun with the Grey Cup, even though our Bombers had to watch Saskatchewan win in our stadium. Hurt a little bit. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. Thanks for being with us on CBC. Well, this half hour, we're going to continue our series about conflict in the workplace. It is something that a lot of Canadians face. So just how many? Why does it happen? And we're going to hear all about that. Also, we're going to hear how difficult it is for some managers to deal with conflict in the workplace, especially when the training for this is lagging behind. So stay tuned. That's all still ahead. Also, we'll take you to something that happened on the weekend. The Manitoba Métis Federation says yesterday was the first time a sitting prime minister came to honor the death of their leader, Louis Riel. The president addressed the prime minister, Mark Carney, at this ceremony yesterday. We'll hear from both of them and the premier this half hour. First, though, let's go to Heather Wells in our news center. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, fewer Manitobans are choosing to have medically assisted deaths in recent years. Data from Shared Health shows the number of people accessing MAID has seen small declines since 2022. A MAID educator worries Manitoba's recent dip points to problems with rural access to health care. And inflation is starting to ease right across the country, but not in Manitoba. Statistics Canada is out with figures this morning. It shows the national inflation rate fell to 2.2% from 2.4% in September. A drop in gas and grocery prices were the two main factors. But in Manitoba, inflation edged slightly higher to 3% in October from 2.9% the month before. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 8:30.
All right, thanks, Heather.
Thank you.
To the weather with Abby.
Clearing skies with sunshine in the south and light snow hanging in the north. Winnipeg, we're at -4, heading to a high of +4 today.
All right, thank you. Corey's here with the commute now.
Yes, right now at McGregor, there is an issue you want to keep an eye out for. McGregor at Mackenzie is closed due to a fire. Oh, sorry, that's Inkster from McGregor to Mackenzie. It's closed right now due to a fire, according to the city. As well, been all morning an issue at westbound William at Lydia. Emergency crews, we hear, are blocking the westbound, all westbound lanes there. If you see anything else, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
Well, as I mentioned, Louis Riel was honored yesterday on the day of his death 140 years ago now. The Red River Métis leader was executed by hanging on November 16th, 1885. Métis people, First Nations, and Francophones were gathering at the gravesite over in St. Boniface at the cathedral to honor the late leader. Now, Manitoba Premier Wap Kinew was there. Also, Prime Minister Mark Carney was there. Manitoba Métis Federation says this is, as you've been hearing in the news, the first time a sitting prime minister has come to pay respects on the day of Louis Riel's death.
It is an honor for me to join, on behalf of the Government of Canada, to join you to commemorate Louis Riel, a foundational figure in the histories of Manitoba and of Canada. 140 years after his execution divided a young nation, Louis Riel's legacy helps to unite a maturing Canada. A Canada that is determined to reconcile with and learn from our history. Throughout his life, Louis Riel struggled for social justice. He fought to defend Métis rights and identity. Riel's title as the father of Manitoba alludes to much, much more than his negotiations for this province to join Confederation. It captures his relentless drive for the Métis to be full partners in Canada and his guiding principles in establishing the province. While reconciliation is a process as yet unfinished, progress has been made, and the trajectory is encouraging. Partnership, open dialogue, building together are how we must move forward. It's how we can fulfill the vision of the man we're here today to commemorate. And it's how we will honor the legacy of Louis Riel. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
So very, very proud to be here with everybody today. And I am very, very proud as a Premier of Manitoba to welcome Prime Minister Mark Carney to this year's honoring of Louis Riel. And the reason why it's so significant to welcome a sitting Prime Minister is because in Riel's day, the Prime Minister of Canada was calling for Riel's execution. And here we are 7 generations later, the Prime Minister of Canada is here to pay respect and to honor Louis Riel. And that shows us that Riel's work is not done. His legacy is alive in our time. Riel's contributions are immense. Of course, he was an advocate for the Métis people, as well as First Nations rights. But he was an advocate for minority language rights. He was an advocate for human rights and the recognition of basic freedoms and liberties for all people who would live in this part of the world. And so to see that the project of reconciliation continues, but also the project of recognizing our rights and freedoms within Canada continues to evolve, it fills me with great, great pride. And so every year I think we take something different out of this honoring of the death of Louis Riel. And perhaps this year is a very special, auspicious occasion of reflecting on how his legacy continues to drive our country forward and continues to the advance of truth, liberty, and justice for all.
Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand also spoke yesterday. He started by saying the Métis never give up.
I'll send a message to the Prime Minister. The Métis never give up. Never. No, through hell or high water, we never give up. Just like Riel, his message that he sent, that we believe on just and honorable ways of doing things together as one. Riel actually had a vision that in the future, the First Nations, for example, there's a bullet right in the Manitoba Act as he's putting forth his demands, is to negotiate the treaties with the Indians. The word Indians was used then. To negotiate treaties with the Indians. And Treaty 1 comes in 1871. Ours in the Manitoba Act comes in 1870, but it never fulfilled its obligation. But you just heard, Mr. Prime Minister, what it is that we face as a people, how discrimination still exists today and why. And now we need to all work together to defend ourselves. We have our country under threat right now. And I think, and I believe in this, everybody knows me, I've been around a hell of a long time. I truly believe that the good Lord gives us a reason for our purposes. Everybody's selected, and there's a purpose for each and every one of us. And I believe at this point in time, there is a purpose for you, Mark. You came in skilled negotiator, skilled banker, skilled to understand how the commodities of exchange happen in the world and how exchange of merchandise, money, and product can change a very entire country. We are under economic attack right now. And we cannot take this lightly. I guarantee you Riel would not take it lightly. He'd be standing up to defend, as we did to the Fenians when they were trying to come in and make this an American state at the time. The Fenians were trying to come. The Métis said, you cross the border, you're going to fight with us. And they backed away. And we sell the same thing to right now, not only John McDonnell, we say the same thing now to Trump. We're not for sale, man. You get the hell out of here and find your own places to buy in the United States, but you're not coming here. We'll stand up with you, we'll fight against you, and we'll do everything in our power to hold against you. So we need to make change economically. We need to look at the economy of our province as the responsibility Riel would have as a provincial government. Churchill needs to come. You know, people would say that it's not necessary because we have already ports. No, no, no. Sea to sea. Now there's another sea. We keep on mentioning sea to sea to sea. Let's not forget the third sea. Yeah, so let's make sure that as Manitobans, and the message we send to Trump on behalf of our great Premier Louis Riel, that we set the stage now of investments may not look as a wise decision at this point in time, but I believe they're truly wise, Mr. Prime Minister. Your direction is going to change our trajectory where we're going. If we do not change, we got too complacent with the United States. 80% of our exchange in businesses with our southern brother. And now the southern brother has told us, you're no longer my kin. And I'm going to take you on or take you over. So now we got to find a new place to do our business. And I think we're in the right direction. You've got the support of my government, I guarantee you 100%. So when you start looking at the future, Riel would be honored to know that his people are not talking just about our rights. We're not just talking about our struggles. We're talking about Manitoba, we're talking about Canada. That's the vision he would have. That's the vision he'd stand for. A proud Canada, a proud united Canada. One that you can give, if necessary, fight for in any capacity. And I do not promote picking up guns to fight. But the threat that's coming, they might be a third world war. They just might be. You know, and that's why I see the national defense you're going to be putting up by Churchill. I hope the hell it comes real. I hope it's not passed away, because Russia is not that far away from us. And we need to understand and educate the young generation today that we're ready. Why am I talking about all this stuff this way? Not talking about Riel itself? Because that's what Riel would have been doing if he was standing here today. He would have been standing for United Canada. He would have been standing for what's good and what's just. And he would have damn well stood to make sure that Canada was protected against, and with all costs necessary to defend the people of Manitoba and Canada. So, our leader, I must tell you, you make us proud. 140 years ago, they thought they'd silence you. In fact, your voice became stronger. I'll share this with you, Mr. Prime Minister. He said, one day this country will recognize me for the good I've done. That day is here by you coming here personally. So thank you very much.
Talking yesterday at the grave of Louis Riel, the Manitoba Métis Federation president. He mentioned Churchill a couple of times there. We're going to hear more about that coming up in our news at 8:30. Well, right now to get us there, let's return to our series on conflict in the workplace, stemming out of a report from Myers-Briggs in 2022, finding employees spend more than 4 hours a week dealing with conflict. Laura Kavanaugh has insight into this, registered psychotherapist, but also professor of behavioral sciences at Seneca Polytech. She specializes in workplace conflict, and I spoke with her last week.
Good morning, Marcy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So what is typically, do we understand what's typically at the root of disagreements with colleagues at work?
Yeah, that's a great question, because as you said, this is not an uncommon experience. In fact, 85% of people will experience conflict at some point with coworkers, and about 30% report frequent conflict. And I want to be clear that we're not talking about really egregious violations of workplace behavior. So we're not talking about harassment or abuses of power, but there's a book by psychologist Tessa West called Jerks at Work. And that's kind of what we're talking about today, just people who are hard to work with. And it's interesting because if you ask the person themselves, what is this conflict about, they will really point to personality issues with the coworker. But what the research shows is that what predicts workplace conflict, both task-related and interpersonal actually, is the level of workplace support. So when we're embroiled in it, we become very focused on the person. They do this or they don't do that, and I don't like that, or do whatever it is, about that person. Here's the reasons I can't get along with them. But that it's really predicted by whether the workplace can manage these issues effectively or not, which kind of makes sense if you think about it, because we're just people and people are flawed. And so if, you can't just, I'll just keep hiring until I hire people with zero flaws, that's not going to happen. But effective workplaces support their employees in managing it.
So in an ineffective workplace, how much, I'll ask about managing it in a moment, but what is the environment like? Is it lack of communication? Are there hierarchical power structures set up? Or what are some of the things that contribute when it's not working?
All of the above. So it's we often think first of really unhealthy work environments, which is a very good example. So like you said, poor boundaries between manager and employees that can lead to like favoritism, a culture of competition, misuse of authority. Those are all examples of a really unhealthy or hostile work environment. But it can also be the other thing that you said, which is really unclear expectations and a lack of clarity among the workplace culture. So poorly communicated expectations, blurred hierarchy where no one really knows who's in charge, people who have shared authority but differing goals, goals that are unclear or poorly defined, right? So a lot of it is miscommunication or a lack of clarity.
It's interesting because I was in a story meeting once with a colleague and we were debating a story. So we were talking about different aspects and we were getting into it over something. And they looked at me at one point and they said, "You realize the rest of the room thinks we're fighting." And both of us stopped because our style was, and each of us didn't feel that way. But we stopped because we looked around the room. So can you help us understand what we can do to diffuse an argument at work when it gets too hot, or else to be mindful of what people think this is how I speak or how I engage, but it may not be helpful in a workplace.
Well, I mean, Mark, I'm actually really glad you shared that example because conflict at work is not necessarily a bad thing, right? In fact, if there's no conflict, it typically means that people are not invested in their workplace. So, we experience conflict when we're passionate about things, when we're invested, when we're interested, when we care. And there's a book by psychologist Bruce Tuckman that's now become a management classic where he talks about the stages of team development at work, which many people have heard of. So the stages are forming, storming, norming, performing. And you have to get through storming to really get through to performing. But Tuckman himself acknowledges that's a difficult stage and it requires good leadership because relationships can fracture. But I also think it's really important to be able to kind of tolerate that kind of goal-directed conflict that you were just describing, right? So, relationships fracture when we start hurling insults at each other. When we both care about our job, that's how we get to be a high-performing team.
So what is the role of the employer in these situations, especially if the team is storming, as you put it? I love that, by the way, that the phases.
Yeah. So like I said at the beginning, this is really, the research is pretty unequivocal that this is the critical element, right? And there may be some amount of friction in all workplaces because, as I said, we're just people. But it's the manager's job and the organization's job as a whole to really create a culture where workplace conflict is resolvable. And what's interesting is we tend to think of these as personality traits, both when we're embroiled in it, but even just sort of from an intellectual perspective. But in fact, these are skills and they can be taught. Now, 60% of people receive no conflict management training, including when they get promoted to being a people manager. So one of the most important parts of their job is conflict resolution in order to create these high-performing teams, but they don't get taught how to do it. And of when people do get that training, 95% report that it is very, very helpful. So I think if we think of these as skills that you can learn, then it becomes clear that the organization has a responsibility to invest in that teaching, right? And maybe you can't send all your employees, but at the very least, managers should be getting trained in this so that they can model it for their employees and facilitate periods of storming and conflict.
I'm so interested in leadership. So I just want to read a quote that was shared with me. This is, and I'm not going to be able to source the quote because it's sourced from an author from a workbook and was shared with me by a colleague. But I think it's a good thing to read to you in the context of what you've been saying. As a leader, it's not about being in charge. It's to take care of those in your charge.
That's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
And it really,
But how do you do it?
Again, unequivocal on that, right? Is that like when people feel supported, they're happier, they feel better about the company, and the behavior that the employer is looking for, no turnover, lower rates of absenteeism, that also follows. So this is a real important investment. And I think, the goal should not be to avoid conflict entirely, because again, that shows a lack of sort of investment and interest in our own work, but to be able to resolve it. And they say, good bosses follow the 3 C's, which is coaching, counseling, and corrective action. Like, you have to teach people. These are skills to learn.
Thank you very much, Laura. Appreciate it always.
Thanks for having me, Marcy.
Laura Cavanaugh, I spoke with her last week, registered psychotherapist, author, professor of behavioral sciences at Seneca Polytechnic, and an expert on workplace conflict. Weighing in on our series, by the way. So if you want to weigh in, call us, 788-3205. How do you deal with workplace conflict? Are you a manager? How often do you deal with this? Also, call at noon. That's the noon call in between 12:30 and 1. And by the way, that quote from author Simon Sinek. Your news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg at 8:30. It's -4, a chilly start to Monday, but our temperature once again is heading back up into warmer than seasonal territory, a high today of 3. Manitoba is spending another $51 million on the Port of Churchill and the Hudson Bay Railway. Premier Wab Kinew says the cash will cover engineering of rail bed upgrades to allow for heavier loads, possibly along a new route.
We're going to be talking about things like the potential route and what is the best way to get products to the coast. So a lot of tires being kicked, a lot of studying going on right now.
The province is also studying ice-breaking needs for potential year-round shipping out of Churchill. The port expansion is still not on a federal list of fast-tracked major projects. Kinew says he hopes to have more to say about the project in the spring. Well, some tense hours expected today in Ottawa. The Carney government is approaching a confidence vote on its budget. If it's not passed, the government falls and Canadians could go to another federal election. At this point, it is not clear the minority government has the votes it needs. Canada's inflation rate eased off last month. Statistics Canada says the rate fell to 2.2% nationally. It had been at 2.4% in September. A drop in gas and grocery prices were the 2 main factors. But in Manitoba, inflation edged up slightly to 3%. It had been 2.9%. Today's update comes ahead of the Bank of Canada's final interest rate setting of the year, and that is set for next month, December 10th. The Manitoba Métis Federation says Mark Carney is the first sitting prime minister to honor Louis Riel on the anniversary of his death. Yesterday was the 140th anniversary of Riel's execution in Regina on charges of treason for leading the Northwest Rebellion. Carney laid a wreath at Riel's grave in St. Boniface. David Chartrand heads the MMF.
I'll share this with you, Mr. Prime Minister. He said, one day this country will recognize me for the good I've done. That day is here by you coming here personally. So thank you very much.
For his part, Carney says after Riel's execution, a young nation was divided, but now his legacy helps unite a maturing nation. As other provinces see growth in the number of people having a medically assisted death, Manitoba's rates have dipped. Since 2022, the number of Manitobans receiving MAID has seen small declines. University of Toronto bioethicist Eric Matheson says growth rates are starting to slow across Canada, and Manitoba is ahead of that trend.
Manitoba is interesting because it has been fairly flat, or since 2022, really the numbers haven't changed very much, and so that's interesting to think about. It's a little bit ahead of kind of the slowdown that we're seeing in other places.
MAID makes up about 2% of deaths in this province. Last year, 188 Manitobans had a medically assisted death. Well, the Saskatchewan Roughriders have tackled their way into Grey Cup glory.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders and Trevor Harris have won the Grey Cup.
was the first Grey Cup win for the team in 12 years. The Rough Riders toppling the Montreal Alouettes 25-17 at Princess Auto Stadium. A Montrealer who traveled to Winnipeg for the Grey Cup says it was hard to watch his team lose. Augustus Mantelis says the game was close, but the better team won. And according to his opinion, the city of Winnipeg also came out with a win.
The Winnipeg festivities were amazing. This is my 21st Grey Cup, and it's the best I've ever been to, and the way the city organized it. First time in this stadium.
Mantelis had been to the two past Grey Cups in the old Winnipeg Stadium at Polo Park, and he says the city did an amazing job. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
The shots last night, I mean, I know what it takes to get those shots, right? The camera operators did a phenomenal job. Just watching it, the stadium looked beautiful. The city looked great. Yeah.
And the halftime show looked great, too.
Yep.
Like, you couldn't believe what, it's lots of stuff going on. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, setting the controversy aside about him not being Canadian, MGK, honestly, I thought it was fantastic. Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
All right. It is time to say thank you to Heather Wells, to Megan Ketcherson, as well to Joni Nicolo, Jenna Badasso, Jim Agapito, Catherine Moreau, Corey Funk, Abby Adiemi, and Darren Marash, as well as Nellie Gonzalez and Leif Larson, all associate producers and reporters that were working on our program today. Corey's last word on traffic?
Yes, Inkster closed entirely at McGregor and Mackenzie due to a fire. So all those eastbound, westbound lanes are closed right at that intersection there. The issue at William and Lydia, if you're wondering, is actually now cleared according to the city.
All right, thanks, Corey.
Thank you.
And I see that blue sky behind your head now, Abby.
Yes, I'm clearing in the south, but we still have light snow falling in the northern part of the province. We're seeing temperatures between 4 and 6 at this time, and highs would be around -6 and -4 rather. And we're seeing highs +4 for the south. Up north, we're going to see highs around -3 to -6.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, take care and be well, Manitoba. Thanks to Faith Fundal once again for filling in for me last Thursday, Friday. And hope you join us all again tomorrow here on Information Radio on CBC. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. You're on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. And stay here because The Current is coming up next. Take care.